Hello out there. I came back from a walk downtown with my dog. My dog and I go down to the farmer's market every Tuesday. Last Tuesday, it's like the Wi Fi is very, very poor at the moment. Last Tuesday, I totally forgot because the day before was Columbus Day. And for some reason, when you think I don't know, I still thought it was Sunday and that was Monday. And I was really tired from doing the Maria Bartiromo stream, which I'm going to be breaking up into. I'm going to do one that's just the pasta making, then one the sauce making, and of course the sauce eating, just to make it as short as possible without any of the comedy, but with the additions that made that show really, really special. But this is what set me off today. And in fact, I came home to a hello there, CB. How are you? God bless you. Thank you for being here. And thank you out there, anyone who is here at the moment, and anyone who has recently subscribed to my channel, or anyone who has subscribed, and those who have recently subscribed. I love all of you. I appreciate it so much. On my way downtown to the farmer's market, I go down there with my wagon to put the vegetables in the wagon, and I'll put my dog in if it's dangerous for him to walk around, or if he would rather sniff and do stuff rather than gotta head through. It's like sometimes we have to cross traffic really fast. So I put him in the wagon. And his water's there too. Anyway, maybe you'll see him. I should actually show him to you at some point during the stream, so you know what he looks like. He's an adorable dog. Anyway, on my way downtown, this is what set the whole thing off. Then I found this short. When I got home, I planned to do the stream because this really pissed me off. Okay, what happened today? And you'll agree with me. God, I hope. I should have named this stream God, How I Hate Marxism, or Marxism, I Hate It. I'm going downtown and I see this sign. Now, I live in the north of the United States, which means it's the part of the United States that never had slavery. Now, how am I sure of that? Well, I'm sure of that because I knew history. I learned history. It was at a time when they were still teaching history, and that you knew other people that were older than you that knew history. Instead of now, Marxism has rewritten the playbook so much so that you have no idea what history is, or the children today have no idea what history is. My state is so screwed up. They're teaching the kids about, white guilt and white privilege, and how in the schools that the color of their skin is the reason why other people suffer. I mean, it's evil. It's evil beyond evil. And yes, I should move out of this state. I really should. I don't know where to go. I don't have the money to move. I don't know what to do. My dog just went in the other room. So until he comes back in, you won't be able to see him. So just hold on to your horses. It's going to be really exciting, especially when you see the dog. Now, that's how sick. You see, these teachers are Marxists, and they were taught to be Marxist, and they were taught a different history. And in fact, they believe that this history written by Howard Zinn rewrote the history of the entire world, where the reason why everybody is coming here, first of all, they were told to come here. They were told that we had work and that we'd pay for them, and that the UN, they're sponsored to get here. And they also are sponsored, they will put up their own money to get here. I mean, how does somebody in Africa or India get to America to go through the border? You have to have lots of money. Well, they're only coming here because the white people of America, or America itself, because this affects descendants of slaves as well, what we call Black Americans, who are Americans, who've been here longer than even my people have been here. And there are Mexican Americans who have been here before the Mexican-American War, who fought on the side of America instead of Mexico because they preferred America. Why? The laws were better. It was safer. And in fact, America gave them whatever land they wanted. They could actually parcel out their land. And America also, not only did they not really take, first of all, America won the war, wanted to pay Mexico for all the land. They wanted to pay for it. Mexico didn't own any land in America. It was Spain that took it. Spain took it from the Native Americans. See, all this history has been rewritten. Marxism has twisted things so much. That's why people come here and they fly the American, not the American. I'm supposed to fly the Mexican flag, is because they think even Michigan belongs to Mexico. They think the entire country belongs to Mexico. Hello, what happened to the indigenous Native Americans who actually weren't, they also immigrated here. There were people who possibly immigrated from, that blew over here. They're not sure, but they came through Chile, and they may be from the Australian Aborigines who died out. Why did they die out? It's because they were killed when they met the Native Americans. They fought them all. One side won and one side lost. I mean, that happens. Native Americans fought each other. Everybody fought each other all the time. Nobody's innocent of anything. And they all tortured each other. Nobody's innocent of anything. Nobody. But you're going to hear that from the Marxists, that's the case. But as far as Mexico goes, America wanted to pay Mexico for the land in America. And the only reason why America wanted that land, well, first of all, that land belonged to the Native Americans originally. And you know who took it? Well, first of all, the French came over here and colonized, and so did the Spanish. The Spanish took all those lands and turned that into like Mexico. It was never owned by the Aztecs. And the Aztecs came from the north. And as it turns out, historically, they found out that the people who used to live there didn't slowly disappear or assimilate into the culture or move away to some other place gradually, because the Aztecs moved down to where and took the land. They killed them all off. I mean, I'm learning about this, and they're saying all but that they basically exterminated them. Now, why do we know that Aztecs would even do such a thing? Oh, it's because they sacrificed thousands of people a day, marched them up the pyramids, cut their hearts out alive, took a bite out of it by the priest, cannibalized their bodies, threw the bodies down the pyramids. We have this; it's all recorded. They found the evidence, and they are not the only ones who did this. There were tribes that were even worse than they were. This flayed people alive, took their skin off in one piece, and then they wore it. The priest wore it because the priest is a shaman, and that was shamanistic to do. When the Spanish came over, they found this monument of 136 1,000 skulls. People, the Aztecs fought on the side of the Spanish against the leaders. It was the leaders because they wanted this to stop. There were victims. I mean, there were victims of other tribes because you had to appease the bloodthirsty gods, and they're victims, their own people. So, of course, the people who killed thought that they were superior to the other people. But so exactly. So you're here. So you're sold this story that it was the white colonizers, but the white colonizers, they never really tell you, are the Spanish. And the Spanish technically are white because they give you the impression that Spanish people are not white. And everything south of the Rio Grande, all the Spanish people are poor and oppressed because of what America did. It seems like these people have been oppressing each other for a long time. And there's been a lot of victims and a lot of oppressors. And of course, the oppressors convince the victims that they're priests, they're kings, they're the ones that the gods want to live, so they have a right to do this to them. So these people live and die believing that they are the underclass. The gods believe that they are the underclass. This is a sick religion. You talk to me all day long about how bad Christianity is. And this sicko Pope we got, that's a whole nother show. That's the reason why he complains all the time about Donald Trump. And he's on the side of the migrants that come over here. And who's going to pay for them? Are you going to pay for them? He had a 20-foot wall. They had a 20-foot wall around the Vatican, the smallest freaking country in the world. And they made it higher. And also you get, if you're caught the first time breaking in, there's a prison sentence and a fine. The second time, you're thrown in jail for like 15, 20 years. I mean, what? Excuse me, what? Well, this particular Pope, I found out immediately. I found out before the elections that one of the guys up for it was a priest hider, was friends with all of the McCarrick types. Let's say, I should say, you can't say that word because that kind of demotes your video. But he was friends with them. He moved the bad priests near grade schools. What do you think? Why do you think people try to demonize other people for? What is the point that somebody, especially in a really, really big position like that, when it was lower, he didn't need to say anything. Well, he did go on X and complain about Trump, but Pope Francis put him as head of all bishops, basically the prefect that picks out who's going to be a bishop and who's going to be a cardinal and where they're going to be. Like the guy who he put in charge of Washington, D.C., was a guy who also protected those bad priests and moved them around. I mean, priests who did assaults to and tortured and kept in the closet women as they tortured them, and would lock the church so that people wanted to pray the rosary had to pray outside. Now, in the Catholic Church, you can't pray the rosary during Mass. That's done before Mass, but you don't lock people outside. Well, anyway, that's the guy. That's McElroy, and McElroy hated Trump. Was a vehement Trump hater, and every other week his sermon is about the migrants. How great no, it's not about Jesus, the Eucharist, salvation of souls, all the good things, just whatever the Bible is actually about. it's only about one thing. It's only about the migrants. And so that's why Francis put him there. But the guy who's Pope now picked him. So he keeps complaining, or he wrote this big law, his first law encyclical, about about the migrants, the plight of the migrants. I go, I don't understand. I do not understand at all whatsoever. I should get back to the history of. Let's finish the history of Mexico. Well, America wanted to pay $30 million, and in those days that's like $30 trillion, for Mexico. And for Mexico, they were fine to keep that land, but whatever lands that were in the Americas that technically Mexico really wasn't using, but some Mexican had moved here because Spain took those lands from the Native Americans, which we all forget. Those lands were taken by Spain, who the Mexicans are more Spanish, and Spanish people are technically very white. They're most of them are Celtic than anything else than Mediterranean. So they're part white Mexicans. That's why they were legally until 1980 classified as Caucasian. They were classified as not Caucasian, white. They are Caucasians, but they were classified as white. They were never classified as black. Not 1980, they were finally classified. Oh, not finally. They're classified as brown. But it's just like, what? They're mostly Spanish. But anyway, they were living in America. America had no problem with any Mexicans living in America. They could become American citizens. We just wanted to pay for the land. We didn't want to have any war. Texaco annexed itself basically by going to war with Spain. And it's interesting how when you look this up, especially through things like ChatGPT and the internet, they make it sound like basically I said what it was, what Mexico really wanted. Mexico invited Americans to come live in Texas. Texas was frontier land because they wanted them to kill the Comanches, to keep them off of Mexican land. You see, the Mexicans did not want Native Americans on their land. So the Marxists will tell you that Mexicans are Native Americans, not all, not totally, and they're technically different than the Aztecs were a civilization and indigenous Americans are tribes. It's a different classification. But they're also more Spanish than they are Aztec. Anyway, so they wanted Americans to move there, convert to Catholicism, and basically they didn't realize until they got there. They said, okay, for that. And they thought it was going to be frontier land. They were going to build it up. And that's what Mexico wanted. They didn't want it built up. They wanted to keep it frontier land. They just wanted the Americans to come there to kill the Comanche. They didn't want any Native Americans living on their land. So that is something that the Marxists will never know. I just spoke to a Marxist that I went to school with the other night, and he's totally pissed off that Trump doesn't know history, because the history, he doesn't believe they don't teach history in school, because they don't teach the history that Howard Zinn taught, the Marxist history, which Howard Zinn is not going to tell you what I'm telling you here. So on the internet, it said, I was almost getting into an argument with the internet. I said, wait a second. They wanted the Americans there to keep it frontier land and to kill the Comanche. And that the Mexican government went to war with the Native Americans that lived in Mexico, went to war with them. And there was about at least 2 wars, maybe 3. I mean, several different tribes, because they didn't want them to have, they wanted their land. But it's America that keeps getting blamed for this. But the Marxists are never going to teach you this. And I did a whole show on that, and I put the names up of all the tribes that were affected. There were tons of tribes that were affected. But that's what the Mexicans did to the Native Americans. And so I'm telling this because I'm trying to pull up, I want the names of the tribe. I'm trying to pull up the information that I got before. And it's saying to me, no, it isn't like that. They just want, the Mexicans wanted the Americans in Texas simply to be a shield, to be a buffer, to protect the Mexican people. Wait a second. What do you mean by shield and buffer? To protect the Mexican people from the Native Americans. Why would you need a bunch of people to come and to basically be human shields to protect the people? So the people of Mexico are essentially better than the Americans that they were enticing to move there, who they may convert to Catholicism. Since they were human shields, which means, of course, Mexicans thought of Americans as lesser, didn't they? If you're a human shield, that means you're there to die, to protect them from the Native Americans. So you're saying there's something wrong with the Native Americans? But it was trying to be so politically correct to correct me on how this was a peaceful thing. Yes, Mexico tried to go straight down Central America to South America. Mexico was trying to take all the land. They were going to war with everyone. And the thing said, it was trying to be so politically correct. Oh, no, that isn't what happened. They went to war, but they gave up peacefully. It just ended and they just stopped fighting and everybody went home. Literally, everybody went home. Oh my God! Marxism is like totally has infiltrated the truth. And the truth is like, who is innocent in South America? I don't know who is innocent in South America. I mean, in Prevost, we'll just call him Prevost. Tell me who is innocent. If everyone with light skin is guilty, then every single person with dark skin is innocent, unless, of course, they voted for Donald Trump. Then they're guilty, right? You have a mix of the people who decided the many religions that were south of the Rio Grande, the many religions that took slaves, tortured and killed people, in many different children, put them on top of mountains to starve, to freeze to death, essentially. Kids, they found their bodies, and some had vomit and diarrhea on them because they're so scared because they knew they were going to die. But this is good. This is their religion because the people decided. So I say those people, there were victims in those societies, but they were victims of the people above them. Marxism usually talks about class systems, but somehow there's no such thing as a class system when it comes to these civilizations. Everybody's a victim. There was no class, but there was a class system. If you weren't here, you were here, and you could be sacrificed, or you sacrificed your children. If not yourself, your children in brutal ways. So Marxism seems to erase the fact that, yes, people in North and South America. Even the Native Americans enslaved other Native American tribes, brutally went to war with them, flayed them alive, which means you take the skin off in one piece and then you wear it. They took land away from other Native Americans all the time. They did it all the time. The Sioux, Lakota Sioux, took the Black Hills from the Cheyenne, and then the Americans won the war and took the Black Hills, and that's where we have Mount Rushmore. But somehow we're supposed to give it back to the Lakota Sioux. And somebody asked, well, why don't you just give it back to the Cheyenne? And the answer was, well, this is what big tribes do. If you're a big tribes just win the war. I mean, the Cheyenne can come and they can use the Black Hills and do rituals or whatever, but we own it because we're the bigger tribe. I remember that was on the web, and that was the Lakota Sioux spokeswoman said it herself. Except that I go, where is that? I want to put that in my video. That disappeared from the web. But I believe, I heard that, and I believe Dinesh D'Souza, I heard him talking about that too. Shocker. That's a shocker. So big tribes do what? They go to war with the little tribes, or because they're bigger, they're more powerful, and it's okay to do it. So what if America is a big tribe? Now, the whole thing, so the whole thing about, we went to war with Mexico. Mexicans fought on our side because they wanted to live in America. They did not want to live in Mexico. It was it was very dangerous, and the government could take your land anytime they wanted to. And basically there was no, the R word was basically not punished. There's a lot of just crime that just never was punished. The likelihood that if you committed any crime that you were punished was very, very low. So Mexicans wanted to live here, farm here, become prosperous here because of the laws. So finally, Texas annexed itself for those reasons. They went to war with Mexico, and we're their own country essentially for 10 years. And the reason why, and of course the Marxists won't teach you this, the reason why Texas didn't become a part of America, which they did, they wanted to become a part of America, is because the North, which was a larger contingent, it was a larger voting bloc, did not want to expand the slave states. But after 10 years, eventually it became part of America. See, most of America, not racist, didn't like slavery, didn't want Texas a part of America because they did not want to make the slave states bigger, because they wanted slavery to be over with. So after that, America, there was some kind of skirmish where some American soldiers were killed by Mexicans. And then we went to war. We won the war. We won all of Mexico. Can you imagine if we kept it? We had our flag planted for 10 months in Mexican soil. And then America not only paid Mexico for the land that they won, like California and whatever, New Mexico, whatever states were left. America paid, I believe it was $15 million by that time, because Texas had already become a part of America by their own war against Mexico. And we had our flag planted for 10 months in Mexico City. It was America, all of Mexico. You win everything. So if Mexico won, it would have won all of America. We won all of Mexico. We probably should have kept it. We probably should have kept it and made that America and laid down American laws. Everybody would have been speaking English. I mean, think about that for a second. But America gave everything south of the Rio Grande back to the Mexicans, the land that they held before the Spanish came over and then took Mexico, as well as Native American land in which is now present day America. Everything back to them, even though the Aztecs, of course, those people were completely eliminated. Whole civilizations were eliminated. People who were indigenous and actually living there, so they could move into where they lived. Nothing you can do, but you can't give anything back to those people because they were all dead because the Aztecs killed them all. And very quickly, and completely annihilated the gene pool. But that's something the Marxists won't tell you. Neither will you learn that. I didn't include this in the Columbus Day show. Neither will they tell you that Mexico wanted, Italians moved to America and North America and South America. North America got the Southern Italians, South America got the Northern Italians. Northern Italians are considered white and were landowners. Northern Italy is considered prosperous, industrialists, whatever. And the reason for that is Northern Italy went to war with Southern Italy. Southern Italy had industrialization, of course, Pompeii and Herculaneum, and used to be a part of Southern Italy. There were no slouches in Southern Italy. What happened was Northern Italy ended up decimating Southern Italy, and they took millions of Southern Italians, brought them up north, put them in prison, and they starved to death and died there in the cold, because Northern Italy is cold. We're talking about cold climates. So Southern Italy wasn't. Everybody looked at Southern Italy as being poor and uneducated, and they didn't know how to do work because there was no industrialization. It's because they had just been decimated by the Northern Italians. And Northern Italians say that anything south of Rome is Africa. They consider them black, and they still do today. So the Italians that went to North America, were black. They were classified as black up to Prohibition. That's another story, why that is. But they would still be black today if the big people in power didn't want alcohol. Italians made alcohol. South America, you got your snooty Northern Italians who had just destroyed the Southern Italians. And also the Confederate soldiers moved down there after the Civil War. They moved down there. After World War II, the Nazi Party, those people went to Argentina. They went to South America. A lot of Germans, a lot of people who fought for the Nazi Party. A lot of them are in Brazil. But so there's a lot of people down there, including people who are descendants of the people that sacrificed brutally and enslaved other people down there. But somehow their genes are wiped clean because of melanin content and because somehow America exists. And because America exists, everyone else in the world, the entire world suffers. And so the people on the bottom who are not educated, who are poor, and some are educated, who are poor and not of a certain class, you make enough money, I suppose, or if you're a politician, somehow you've got to be on some level in America. Oh yeah, and you have to be a Democrat. You are guilty of however America oppressed the entire world. And the reason why anybody with any melanin in their skin is suffering today is only because of the Americans who are lower class, who had no power to begin with, who are right now really poor and losing their homes right now, may or may have some education, maybe, but they're on a lower class, and voted for Donald Trump, did not vote for the Democrats. Those people are all guilty of oppressing the entire world, even though they were not empowered to do it. That's amazing. It's amazing how the Democrat Party, which essentially is the Communist Party now, you've got open communists running in office. The guy who's the mayor of Chicago is an open communist. The one that let her city burn, actually Chicago, he's whatever his name is. He's letting his city burn and his people die. Every week there's like hundreds of shootings and at least 10 people of color die every weekend. What's her face? The one that's still in power, the one that was in Africa while her city burned, and that she drained the reservoir that was meant to feed all of the fire hydrants to stop a fire from consuming the city. And people aren't allowed to go back on their land to rebuild or clean up either. She visited Fidel Castro. She is an adherent of communism, Fidel Castro, of course, which is very hypocritical. I think she's biracial. She's a lesbian. She's biracial. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's the communist part that's twisted. She doesn't. It's like she doesn't even know the history of Cuba and Che Guevara. Che Guevara, who everybody wears on their T-shirts and hails as some kind of a hero, killed all the homosexuals and also the black people. They hated Fidel Castro and Che Guevara. They hated black people. If you go to Cuba, the prisons are filled with black people. The black people are all lower class citizens. And there's a thing called the Damas de Blancos, the women in white, who go out on the streets that protest for their husbands in jail. And when our first black president went to visit Cuba, they got off of the plane. They were all nice and clean. And the Damas de Blancos were in the streets and they were protesting. They wanted Obama, since he was the first black president, though he's biracial. And America's got all this power, and he got the Peace Prize. He was supposed to save people. The Damas de Blancos, which are black Cuban women, were in the streets wearing white, and they wanted Obama to hear them, to hear that their husbands and sons and friends, whatever, were in prison, were political prisoners and being held there basically because they're black. Because there's a divide right down the middle of Cuba between black and white, by the way. We're talking Spanish white and black. And they wanted to be heard by the first African-American president, who was not a descendant of slaves. Well, they went and they got ice cream, and they were licking their ice cream. They're all dressed all nice. You see, Castro sent out his henchmen to beat up the Damas de Blancos until they were the Damas de Rojas, the women in red. They were completely bloodied, and they were laying on the street. They couldn't even stand, and half of them, or 3/4 of them, got arrested. So this what's her face? I forget her name. The mayor of Los Angeles. What's her face? Karen Bass. It's Karen Bass. Does she know about that? At least does her black half know about that, or maybe just her white half knows about that? Maybe it's just her white half is the half that's embracing Marxism, communism. Is that it? I mean, that would be the only thing that makes sense to me. Otherwise, that doesn't make sense to keep going there and visiting. She and somebody else. I just found somebody else that keeps visiting. Of course, the Hollywood star. It's a Hollywood star. It's Hollywood star that keeps going to visit Cuba and how great Cuba is and how wonderful it is and how, Hollywood keeps hanging the mantle that they are for diversity. Like Hollywood was always for diversity. That's the reason why the African Americans complained, why the African Americans weren't getting Oscars, because there weren't enough African American films. So, but Hollywood, they didn't realize that Hollywood is really diverse and they really care so much about diversity and equality. As long as they visit Cuba, maybe they're visiting the white side of Cuba, and see, everything just is so nice on the white side of Cuba. Of course, Cuba was at Mondami, wants the same kind of what do you call it? Grocery stores as in Cuba, where there's really nothing on the shelves, or you'll have one item, but it will be just one company that makes this one item. You get a lot of it. It's poor quality. Like you'll have jars of rice, jars of pre-cooked rice, or like jars of pre-cooked black beans. I mean, some kind of ridiculous, like just whatever is there, and people just go in whatever and get whatever's there, and it's just a lot of something, but not a variety of what you actually need. And then there's nothing left in the grocery store. Then the grocery store is empty until they decide to fill it, whether that's a month or 2 months from now. But you go in there and you buy bulk of a lot of crap. That's just a lot of something. If you want salt, you got to get it from the ocean. I mean, there isn't even spices. You just go to the ocean and dry out some of the salt water if you want a little flavor, but that's your grocery. That really is. And in fact, it's not even an exaggeration. It's so scary. That's why these people, these politicians and the Hollywood stars must be visiting the white affluent part of Cuba, not the part of Cuba that is oppressed and poor and communist. There's no way they would go there, because they would never put up with that to begin with. And they come back with these beautiful stories about how great it actually is in Cuba. And they still held Che Guevara, the one that annihilated all the homosexuals. Well, tell those people in Hollywood has nothing wrong with being homosexual, but the fact that Hollywood has always had a lot of homosexuals. Why are you hailing Che Guevara and Fidel Castro then? I mean, not only the racial part of it, that they hated black people, they assassinated all the homosexuals. Anybody opposed to communism, they still have films of this. You can see films of this. They brought them to the beautiful seashores that these people go and visit in Cuba. They lined them up and killed them, assassinated them all. And they kicked them out into the ocean for the sharks to eat. Because once there's blood in the water, the sharks are going to come and those bodies are gone. And it eliminates burying, eliminates cremation, it eliminates carbon in the air. Oh God, let our leaders know, let the Democrats know that you just throw the bodies in the water, but you have to make sure you got to let get some blood. You got to get some bloodletting going. So the sharks come and eat us. That is perfect. That's the perfect way to get rid of our bodies. We never existed at all whatsoever, except especially the side of the aisle that you hate, that you're calling for the death of. Anyway, so that's this whole, so this Pope, you see, this Pope, oh, we've got it, there's nearly 9 billion people in the world. So we open up our border. The Democrats told them to come. Of course, somebody's paying for them to come because it costs thousands. First of all, it costs more money to cross that ocean and to go up the continent, however, to pay people to get here than I will ever have in my entire life. That's a lot of money. So, and the amount of money that they're paying to get here, according to CIS, the Center for Immigration Studies, they pay $10,000 to be brought over to America, and then $40,000 to the drug mules to bring them up. Because we're funding the drug mules. So tell Prevost, the new Pope, that you're funding the drug mules. You're funding the drug cartels. And the drug cartels are killing north of 110,000 people a year with drug overdoses. Now you think to yourself, okay, first of all, these people can't be poor people if they have that money, or then they owe the drug cartels, and that's why they come here. And you come here, and you'll have to steal to get that money to pay the drug cartels back. Otherwise, they'll come and get you, or you have to become a part of the drug cartels and the gangs. That's the reason why the gangs. Or there's a certain part of New York. It's not New York City. I forget what it is. New Jersey. One of those places that it used to be dominated. This is, you're gonna laugh now. It's just to be dominated. There's the sex industry there was mostly Asian, and Asian women are now it's dominated from people from South America, because kind of push those Asian women out of the market, which is, they deserve to make money, huh? They deserve to make money, but it's and why were they pushed out? Because you've got gang members that are not letting them make money and do their job, and these other women need the work. Why? Is because they need to pay back the drug cartels. And of course, the women who come over the border are raped. But we find that the footage that we've seen, it's all military age men, which is kind of scary. Why would you have military age men? Well, they're asylum seekers. Okay, they're asylum seekers, so they're leaving their families, their children, their wives, their mothers. They're leaving them in a country that is dangerous for them, that they had to leave and seek asylum. So these are noble, good men that are seeking to save their lives, but they left the women there? This doesn't make any sense. Does the Pope know this? Does the Pope know this? Does the Pope know that when people are on hard times, or they're disabled, or they're elderly, or they're out of work, or they need housing, that we've all been told there isn't enough money, you didn't make enough money, so you can't earn that much in disability or as a senior citizen because you didn't meet the threshold, because you earn minimum wage and you were poor. So you get too little to even survive. But I need a little extra help. There is no extra help. Well, I need housing for the poor. Well, it takes 10 years on the list. list, you have to wait 10 years to get Section 8 housing. I've been on that list, that Section 8 housing list. I was lucky that my father finally, it's a long story, but at the same time, come this spring, usually somebody donates some money, to that. I haven't had one donation. So come this spring, I mean, I've been lucky for this past couple of years, and because of COVID, things I wasn't able to pay. And so I'm really, really behind, but I haven't been able to pay a dime at all. Because why is it that people can't help? Well, one person wanted to make a donation and have me sign my house over to him. That was realized that he wasn't being kind. Let's put it that way. So he's gone. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's a situation the state will just take the house. Either I have a house, situation is either it's a dwelling, but it can't be income. So it isn't like I can sell the house and make money. It's a difficult, very difficult situation. And those who are educated in my family just want me to go to a halfway house and live with disabled, drug addicts, and the elderly. But there's no room. You have to have a waiting list for that too. So there's nothing except homelessness. And that's what I'm facing. But that's why part of this is homelessness, because I met a homeless man today. And every time I meet a homeless person, I know I'm looking into my own face. I've known this for a long time, that the time was going to come. And he says he's got cancer. He's getting health care. He's getting health care. But they said there's no housing. And he goes, I've tried everything. I tried assistance. I tried to get, he's an American citizen. And I go, I know exactly it. I've spoken to counselors, and I go, what about, the trauma, like the severe abuse that I've had my whole life and my family, and how bad it was. And I've been looking for help my whole life because of how bad that was. And so could you please, is there any help at all out there? Any help? Well, I asked around. She goes, she's supposed to be my counselor. I asked around. I finally get this counselor, and they talk to me on the phone. It's like, and she goes, I asked around, and, they said to me, well, she's an adult. And I go, well, yes and no. Yes and no. If you're severely abused and they don't let you drive a car, and they also don't let you take a class or go to college. So the only reason why they had you was because you were supposed to take care of them in their old age. So they don't go into a nursing home. And after that, the house was supposed to go to my sister, who's got a PhD, and 3 houses, and lots and lots and lots of sources of income. So that's homelessness and slavery. You see, there is slavery. There is all sorts of slavery. There is sex slavery. Women go through. See, my town, what pissed me off on my way downtown before I met the homeless men, I was already getting pissed off because I live in the north. And you see, Marxism, and I'm telling you history, because this is so twisted. And my state is teaching the white children that they are responsible for everything that has ever gone wrong because of the color of their skin. Yes, and my people who came to this country, when they came, they were black. And then they were still treated as black. And they couldn't go to the police when they needed help because they were black. And there were no handouts either then. No handouts at all whatsoever. There was no handouts. There was nothing. Nothing. My head dog is right here. So I'm walking down the street, and this is the crazy thing. Remember, I told you about how the North would not let Texas into the nation because they didn't want to expand the slave states. They didn't want to make them because the Northern Bloc was bigger, and the North did not want slavery. Now, this is a total no-brainer here. That this, wait till I tell you what the sign said. Wait till I tell you what the sign said. Okay. Now, if you know anything about history, if you actually learned history in school, and it was not Marxism was infiltrating when I was in school, but we still learned enough to know the truth. Enough. And in my town, there's a statue, or it's in the next town over, of Sojourner Truth. You know who Sojourner Truth is? Sojourner Truth, she was a part of the Underground Railroad. She helped. See, the Underground Railroad that everybody used to learn about is the railroad that helped the slaves escape to the North so they would have freedom, right? The North was free. Okay, there's one piece of evidence about the North not having slavery, other than maybe sex slavery, or enslaving your children or whatever. You know, I mean, there's some secret slavery going on that was technically against the law, but still going on. You got your Underground Railroad. You got the fact that the northern states were more powerful than the southern, that they did not want to let Texas into the Union because they did not want to expand the slave states. There's that piece of evidence. The fact that Abraham Lincoln, the Republican Party, was formed to abolish slavery. I don't care. Say what you want about the Republican and Democrat Party now. The Democrats are the reason why they shut down the government is like the reason why pisses the frick out of me. Why don't you pay for it? $1.3 trillion in healthcare. They want to pay for all the healthcare for anyone who is illegal. There are nearly 9 billion people in the world. How many doctors are there? How many healthcare facilities are there? How many homes are there? How many? How big is the sewer pipe in your neighborhood? And can it accommodate more people? And if you open that border and let's say half of or 1/4 of that, the amount of people in the world came through that border, could that sewer pipe, forget about the doctors and the food and the land and the fact there's going to be more carbon and more pollution and the fact that there's going to be more fossil fuels burned because we have winter in this country, which you're taking people who don't, from countries that don't have winter, and they're going to have more clothes, and the clothes that can't throw away. In my town, can't throw away clothes. Anyone can't do anything because clothes are made out of plastic now, which is a petroleum product. So all these people are going to have and use more petroleum products and have to wear more petroleum products and have to burn more petroleum products. It just, why do you want to pack the country, and how can you possibly do that? The sewer pipe alone will explode. Remember that sewer pipe? Did you see that video of the sewer pipe in China that exploded? That looked like a volcano erupted, and there was sewage over the highways. I mean, miles away, there was sewage going everywhere. I mean, it just Can you imagine that? So when I just say, like, forget about the fact that that the healthcare system in my state is imploding. Pope, it's imploding. So that means anybody who's Latino or African American or anything that's not white, all these people, if it's imploding, either you've got one or two things happen. You've got wealthy people that are educated, which I think that you want. You want a world of the wealthy, the people who can, very educated like you on this level. And then there's the people below. You can say, these people up here can pay for their health care. The people here, you are going to have to choose. What's going to happen is they're going to choose who is going to get health care. Now, are an American citizen, are they down here? Are they going to get the health care no matter what color they are? Are they going to get it? Or are you going to pick and choose that you would rather have people because you're shutting down the government? I've been saying this for a long time before they decided to shut down the government for this very reason. I said that this is what they're going to do, that there's going to be the winners and losers, the wealthy that can pay, who are all their friends. Marxism is about a classless system, but no. It's all about class, because this system is about these people up here and these people up here who can buy their homes anywhere they want to buy it. And they can pay for their own health care, and they can have homes all over the world, and they're all educated. So they all have that really fancy educated lingo. They use those words and that, I know, that phraseology that I'll never know. And what they do is they complain, like my city will complain about there aren't enough, they're complaining about there's a graveyard and there's no Native Americans buried in the graveyard. I mean, it's a really old graveyard from the beginning of the, first of all, you knew nothing about Native Americans. I mean, they want to be buried in their own graveyards, and their graveyards are sacred. And if you can't build on one of their graveyards, because that's a big no-no. They don't want to be buried in the white man's graveyard that was the white man who were Christian. They don't want to be buried there. There's a sign outside of the graveyard apologizing and the fact that they are humiliated because of this. The Native Americans did not want to be buried there. So I don't think you need to apologize for this. That's not even the last thing they wanted. There's no freaking way that they wanted to be buried there. No way. So you people are like nuts. And then they complain in the newspaper, there aren't enough, there's too many white people in this town. So basically they've brought in people who are not white, and they will pay landlords. And of course, we've got a housing shortage. No poor people could live in. There was a poor section in my city that went up to was it as of 25 years ago, the rents went up to $1,000 for one apartment, and now it's just through the roof, even in the poorest sections of the city. Where I lived is a section that was not considered white. It was a section that the mongrels that came over here from other countries lived. There's no spanking white people in this area, but according to, that's now we're spanking white people. Okay. It's like, I don't even want to mention, see, the thing that pisses me off is like, if I say something like, oh, my grandmother, my father's side was Algonquin, or my father's part Egyptian, they'll say, oh, well then, you're not a part of that category. No, I want to be a part of the category that you're judging me on. That's the part of category. And I want to be a part of the category that was actually Native Americans were not classified as Black, and neither were Egyptians. Neither people were ever classified as Black. You know who was? Southern Italians. That's who. And that's who your history is so messed up that you have no idea what they've been through. No idea. Mexico. Let me go back to Mexico. The Mexican government wanted to build up their society. And there was the diaspora from Italy. And the northern Italians went to South America, and they were considered white there, and they were big landowners. But if any of those people who are white, if you're Confederate soldiers or Germans or Nazis or whatever, and they're mixed in or whatever, they're all considered Hispanic, anybody who comes on the border. Nobody is considered white. Can you believe this? Even though they were actually fighting for the Confederacy, fighting with the Nazis, or Northern Italians who were considered white and affluent. But my people were classified as Black. And for some reason, just because the wealthy people and the politicians wanted alcohol, and you couldn't be Southern Italian, caught Southern Italian, which is technically caught Black. That would mean you were caught driving Black in a white neighborhood, and the politicians and the wealthy people would get in trouble. They'd get arrested for buying the alcohol, because Italians made alcohol because they made wine, because you have to have wine with your dinner because that represents the blood of Christ. You had bread because that represents the body of Christ. And that's the reason why all Italians made alcohol. And so that's the only reason why they were suddenly classified as white, not treated as white. But we are not Latinas. We're not even Latinas, even though we are so deep in the bottom of the boot. We're in the shoe part that's closer, used to be attached to Africa, by the way. Italy, Malta, Sicily, all that used to be attached to Africa. Technically, part of our DNA is related to North America and the Levant, was it Western Asia, the Middle East. That's the DNA. Northern Italians are part French, are related to the French and the Spanish. And Southern Italians are related to. Hello there, Sanador. I thought I'd have a rant because you enjoy my rants. So I thought I'd just come on and rant. So anyway, the Mexicans, because the Southern Italians, and I told you the reason it was because of the war that decimated Southern Italy, that took away the industry, made everyone poor and dependent on the wealthy people, because the Northern Italians took everything away and killed more people were killed in that war, in the Italy's unification war, than all the wars that combined that Italy was involved in, but killed more Southern Italians by essentially putting them in a concentration camp up north without enough clothes, and so they froze to death. So Mexico wanted to, everybody was importing Italians. They wanted Italians, but Mexico wanted the Northern Italians. They didn't want the Southern Italians because they weren't considered educated. They weren't industrialized. There were all the bad things that all the white people, all the Democrats, all the Marxists think that we think of the people in South America. Yet, a Southern Italian to them is considered white. But Mexico didn't even want us. Do you get this? Mexico didn't even want us. So they took the Northern Italians because they didn't want the dirty, stupid, ignorant, crime-ridden Southern Italians. Mexico. We were rejected by Mexico. So if you think for one, see, Marxists, they have no idea. They have no idea. Wait, getting back to that sign. Oh boy, that sign. Okay. That sign. Okay. So getting back to the history of slavery. And with the evidence of slavery, would we say, first of all, the North, it was a bigger voting bloc, would not allow Texas into the Union because they did not want to expand the slave states. The Underground Railroad, that the freed slaves, or the slaves trying to free themselves, went through the Underground Railroad to get to the North. And Sojourner Truth, who is in the city or town next to this one that everybody paid to have a statue of, and she's the one, the Underground Railroad, and getting people up here, which should remind people about the Underground Railroad and why people wanted to come to the North. That Abraham Lincoln, here's another, Abraham Lincoln, Republican Party was formed to abolish slavery. Abraham Lincoln was elected twice. He did not get one vote from the South, not one vote from the South. So that means the majority of America was not racist, did not want slavery. Okay. And that was the North. That was entirely the North. Now, I'm going by the Historical Society. I'm bringing, because I can't afford a car. I'm the most carbon less person that ever lived. I've got my wagon, gonna get the vegetables, put it in the wagon, got my dog here. And I see this sign. And I see a picture of a slave basically on it. Say from the South, the slaves. We're not talking about different, like they're female slaves or sex slaves or child slave labor. We're talking about, or somebody just being kept as a slave in their house, or the Irish slaves. Remember, were actually before slaves came over from America. The colonies got the Irish slaves and the underclass of England. That underclass from England, if you were the underclass, if you're homeless, if you stole even something as stupid as a hand trowel, which is what you use to plant little plants in the garden. I mean, you either, they hang you, and they said, why don't we just sell them to the colonies? But they're indentured, sir. We'll call them indentured. But they were so poor and they were so malnutritioned because they were starving that when they got here, the people who bought them didn't pay much for them. So they worked them to death to get every single penny out of them. Or before their time was up, they sent them to work for somebody else. So technically the contract was null and void because the contract for them didn't exist anymore. So the person who is poor and desperate that nobody was going to hire in the Americas, that would be totally homeless, had no choice but to go to somebody else just to live inside of a home and get something to eat, maybe. So these people never saw freedom ever. They all died. But that's a slave that nobody talks about. Neither were the slaves that the Barbary pirates at the same time. Thomas Jefferson was he president of the United States at the time, I believe. The founding of this nation, the Barbary pirates, who were the Muslims of North Africa, took 2 million Europeans, including, they went all the way to Iceland. They took people from Iceland. They were white. They went to Ireland and took an entire city in Ireland. And then they brought them to North Africa. And what they wanted the women as slaves, and they castrated the men because they didn't want the men to have any relations with the women, and they didn't want any of them to propagate. And when a child was born of the union of the female sex slave and the Muslim Barbary pirate, the child was killed the second it was born. So there's no descendants. And the men were to torture them. They would crucify them on like an X. And so the men when you castrate men, so the reason why they had to take so many is because when you castrate a man, it 1 out of 40 survive. So basically you lose 39. So they had to take a lot because most of them are going to die. So nobody talks about that slavery. And the idea, once I spoke about this, there's a video I did many years ago, I think in 2018, about this. And somebody wrote, well, we can't forget about the families who in Africa who lost their family members to slavery. Someone should account for it. I think I even knew the person. I think, and they were just like, I knew who they were. They were a jerk, and they were being a jerk. But it's like, wait a second. You have to think about this. Most of the people out there are descendant, maybe listening to me, I don't know. Maybe are descended from people who came from Europe. Maybe you have some other mixed in. People that came from Europe, right? Do you know anything in your family history, if you go back as far as the founding of this nation, you'll see, even if you have the family tree and you see these names, is anybody crying about, or is anybody getting reparations for, or crying for the Europeans that were taken as slaves? This was occurring at the same time as the African slave trade, and which the Arabs started. Muhammad started the African slave trade, and what he did was the reason why these people converted. All these countries converted from Christianity. By the way, missionaries converted them from Christianity, which you'll never learn in Marxism, from Christianity to Islam. The missionaries, after Jesus and the apostles, they went out and they converted. It wasn't by fire and sword. They didn't go to war on people. They didn't decapitate them for not converting like they did to the Jews in Medina, and they did to the Italians. Actually, did it to an entire town of Italians, including the women and the men. The Jews in Medina, they killed the men. In Italy, they killed all of them for not converting. But all these Middle East, Africa and Middle East were predominantly Christian, and more than Europe. And then Europe got caught. The only reason why it's more in Europe now, it's Christianity technically, at one time was not a white at all religion, at all, because it was predominantly Middle Eastern, North African, more than it was European. It was that. So the stigma of Christianity and whiteness is a lie. That's also a Marxist lie, because they'll never tell you about the truth that Christianity went into India as far as that. But we're going to go back to, there's, if you did not, you see, the stigma was if you were Jewish or if you're people of the book, you could become a dhimmi. See, that's when Islam conquered the nation. And if you didn't convert, either it's convert or die if you're a pagan. If you're people of the book, you could become a dhimmi. A dhimmi technically is a slave. You give 60% of your wages to Muslims. And the idea of the belt was invented. That's where the belt came from. That if you paid your wages once a week to the Muslims, you got this belt that basically said that you paid, or you had this thing that was they put around your neck to show that you had paid. So technically you were a demi and you were a second-class citizen. So being a Christian or a Jew, you were a second-class citizen. But you at least got to live. So in Africa, if you were Christian or even whatever, it doesn't matter. In Africa, they instead of people got sick of being treated like that. Because they couldn't stand living like that, which is what's happening in England. You see, when you have a class of people that's being treated like royalty, essentially like royalty by the king himself, not just the government, but the king himself, and that they're letting prisoners who've committed all sorts of crimes, including the R word, violent crimes, out of prison to put English citizens in if they write something on social media that the government doesn't like. You've made second-class citizens out of all those people, and all those people are the ones that are paying for these boatloads of people that are coming over. And there's boats, little shuttle boats that go back to France, back and forth, that they filmed, that they go back and they come back and they dump people off. So this isn't stopping. If you say anything against Islam, you're considered Islamophobic, and that's a crime now. So basically what they're doing, the idea of being a demi, how they got people to convert to Islam back then. And Islam started the African slave trade. They did the same thing to the African people. There was the slave trade. There's a slave trade that went on in Africa, and the bigger tribes would conquer the little tribes, and the little smaller, more vulnerable tribes are the ones that became slaves, were sent to the Americas. 95, by the way, 95% of the African slave trade went to South America. 95%. America got 5%. America got, if you want to calculate it, America got 500,000 of the transatlantic. It's a transatlantic slave trade. America got 500,000. South America got 9,500,000. Think about that. So, okay, all right, that's right. America is at fault again. What? Howard Zinn, Marxist. What again? What? Do you see how twisted history is? So, and Islam kept even though the slave trade was supposed to have stopped, it ended. Britain ended it, or the Western world had it for like a few hundred years at the most, the African slave trade. Before that, it was just any white people, anybody. You see, it's the same thing as any country. Africa, the big tribes would conquer the little tribes, grab them all, bring them all to the coast, and sell and trade them as slaves. Another tribe, just like in South America, the other tribe is, to them, the concept of black and white didn't, even in ancient Rome, the concept of black and white didn't exist. It was what people thought, though Rome was a real mix, believe it or not. I know what they did to Jesus was awful. I mean, no, besides what they did to Jesus. America, technically that's where you got the idea. People, you could come to ancient Rome even as technically as a slave. As far as Syria, anybody could come, and you worked to become a citizen. Technically, you came in as slave status, but you worked to be a citizen. In 20 years, you'd be a citizen, but they wanted you to learn the language and the culture and how the society worked. So when you became a citizen, you could become affluent. There were people who were slaves who became wealthy business owners, and they put their Roman citizenship on the wall. Maybe Jesus couldn't have done that. They had something again. Well, actually, there was a whole thing. They said he was a troublemaker, right? And he was upending the whole social order because he was a king. The different situation. I know he's saying, well, wait a second, what did they do to Jesus? Like, oh, wait a second, there was a good side to ancient Rome. But people didn't. Syria was the first place where the word Christian, the word Christian was first uttered. The road to Damascus, that's Syria, Damascus, Syria. But we think that these are not white people, right? These are not white people. And that's the first place the word Christian was. That they made up the word Christian. So how can Christianity? How can it possibly be? And if everybody claims that, or at least the Marxists claim that Jesus must be black, how can Christianity possibly be white? I mean, Jesus was probably dark-skinned, probably not African, most likely not African, according to the archaeological evidence. But there'd be nothing wrong with that. But what we do know is that they weren't white, or at least they weren't the white that Marxists say white is. Their classification of white. It's crazy. So why is Christian synonymous with whiteness? Why isn't it synonymous with the people that the Marxists like? Oh, because the Marxists do not like Christianity. Anything but. Everything is better, especially Islam. Oh, the Islam that started the African slave trade Islam? Is that the kind of Islam that made people slaves? If you were people of the book, you could at least be a slave until you converted. Then you got treated better, which is what's going on in Britain. They are forcing people are losing their minds. There's an elderly woman who was just standing 200 feet. I forget what it is, but she wasn't next to the baby removal clinic. She just stand there with a sign, and she was far away. And she said, elderly woman's in her 80s. And she said, I'm here to talk. That's all. I'm here to talk. It could be talk about how to make a cherry pie. You know what I mean? It's just, that's it. She was arrested. Not only was she arrested, she was fined 20,000 pounds. And she would have lost her house, but somebody started a GoFundMe for her. But they have her businesses, venues, places all over England have her face, a picture of her face, and they have facial recognition. And most places won't even allow her to be there because they can recognize her face. And she happened to be a Catholic. Didn't mean it. Catholic, Christians are against baby removal. So it's an anti-Christian, a Christian country that's anti-Christian now. So if you oppress a people, and I sound Italian, you oppress a people. If you oppress people that much, and that's how the idea of demihood, being a demi in the Islamic world, if you're a person of the book, you could be a slave and you'd be a second-class citizen, you'd be treated like garbage, and you'd have to pay Muslims. You'd have to pay 60% of your earnings to Muslims every year. So you live on nothing until you can't take it anymore, and then you convert to Islam, or you are a pagan and it's convert or die. So most pagans would just convert immediately, and who would blame them? But that's how the religion started. You think the Marxists would be against that system? So in England, you've got a situation which I don't think even, I'm sure David Wood and Apostate Prophet, who I think are the best as far as speaking against a lot of things. They really are really very, very rational, intelligent. I mean, there's one that I like, but if you turn on his channel, be careful. Don't write anything in the comments or he'll yell at you. But he's brilliant. His mind is like, he memorizes, you could just memorize everything. But now, last time I heard him talk, it's like there was kind of getting a little pro-Pope. I think, despite what the Pope is doing, a little too pro-Pope. And we got to call it, I believe in calling it as we see it. You know what I mean? And I think because David Wood is he's a Protestant. I'm not sure what denomination, if he's evangelical or an apostate prophet converted from Islam to Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox. And they're very rational and sane. I do like them. I do like their discussions the best. And but anyway, I'm not sure if they mentioned this or not. They connected the two, and they probably have, and I haven't heard it. So I don't want to say I'm saying this first. I just haven't heard it. But the idea of the demi that I just described and what's going on in England, you're getting they're doing this to get the entire population to convert to Islam, because people will not be able to handle being second-class citizens anymore, being arrested for writing something on social media that you're against immigration or migration or whatever, just something that they don't like on social media. This is absolute insanity that the grooming gangs over there have been going on 50 years, of girls who are Indigenous, English, Christian, let's just say, without using the W word. You don't know everything, the algorithm, the AI picks up everything, so you can't complain about anything. Girls who have no homes or in foster care, girls who don't have a father, they don't even know who their father is, are thrown away, and the men who use them call them infidels, and you can be, and they deserve to be, because they're infidels, and they are all sluts by birth, because they're Indigenous Christians. Let's just say they've said this. The government has allowed this. When the Queen was alive, you would think that the King or the Queen should just dissolve Parliament and wouldn't let it reform. I'll keep dissolving it until you fix this problem. I'll keep dissolving Parliament if you keep harassing and torturing your own people, because people are going to be deleting themselves. What do you think? Would you think so many people die of fentanyl every year in America? Would you really think that they wanted to die? Well, it's an easy, quick, and pain. Fentanyl is a painkiller. They add it to painkillers. It's an actual drug, but they add it to painkillers to make it more effective. It kills the pain. They feel like their lives are worthless. And the whole Marxist ideology makes people feel that their lives are worthless. Now, there are homeless in this country. There are homeless Black people and Hispanic people, but you're an American citizen, so you're privileged to die on the streets of this country. There are more homeless Black people in Los Angeles than anywhere else. Privileged. The mayor is biracial, calls herself Black, but she's biracial. You'd see that she's biracial very clearly. $40 billion went into homelessness in the state of California. Nothing has happened. It's been going into the pockets of everybody's friend. You know, the politicians have their friends, and they hire their friends because their friends got them into office by donating or working for them, and it's gone into everybody's pocket. So you don't matter. Construction industry used to be dominated by African American men. Now it's not. Now it's over the border labor force because they can pay them less. And so African American men who were able to they have a family, they keep it together because they're getting enough money. They want to have a family. They want to have a wife. They want to keep their family together or earning enough money to do so. And were able to send 2 kids to college. Now they don't have that anymore. And thank you to whoever allowed this to happen and to switch. So the Pope doesn't care about that, or that if you hire somebody who's got a green card or an H-1B visa, the payroll taxes are less. You get a discount if you're a big company. Not only do you get to pay them less, you can lay off American workers, hire green card H-1B visa workers, pay them less, and get a big discount on your payroll taxes. Pope doesn't have a problem with this. Most of the women who come over the border are assaulted, let's just say. The children are assaulted. Children disappear into slavery. The Pope, of course, the Pope doesn't care about it. He moves priests around. I was saying, and a few videos ago, I said this. I wanted to do a whole show on it, but I'm going, it was weird. It was really weird because there was one very outspoken, very intelligent, he's got a doctorate, Catholic person, content creator. And he used to complain about Francis all the time. He was, in fact, Francis used to watch his show. Catholic Church, the people who loved Francis hated him. And by right, he was right. But he said, well, if this new Pope names himself a certain name, let's just say there was a coincidence that happened. And he showed you a list of everybody who was a candidate. And he also showed you this guy, the one's in office. And he told you everything that was wrong with him, what he did, and how he's connected to all these bad bishops, bad priests, bad cardinals. And he was guilty. He was guilty down in South America, doing that stuff, known for doing stuff and moving stuff around. Showed a picture of him. The second he came out on the balcony wearing because Francis didn't wear the formal vestments. He would just wear white because he was so humble and a globalist. Well, this guy's a globalist too, except he speaks Latin every now and then. Oh, he speaks some Latin. It's a Novus Ordo Mass because the people were traditionalists, like the traditional Latin Mass. But he's saying Latin words and he's wearing the vestments. Goody. And guess what his name is? Oh, yes, it's that traditional name you were looking for. Well, this guy pulled that video down that where he told you about the crimes. We're just gonna say crimes. I don't know what other word to say. The faux pas, the grand faux pas, the devilish faux pas of the guys in office now. Pulled it down. No respect for that guy. There was two. There was one is admitting the faux pas and told people that but he doesn't get as many subs, many views. And the other one, his name is, well, I'll tell you, I can tell you both their names if you want to watch them. Who's been consistent. We're talking about people who've been consistent, not like, let's just give this guy, the first one I told you about didn't give him any grace period, basically because he knew who he was. Bishop Strickland, who was taken down because he was a Trump supporter, actually was a really good guy. He was talking to Glenn Beck on the Blaze. When he saw Prevost walking out on the balcony, Bishop Strickland said, oh God, this guy is guilty of all these things. And he said it outright at that moment. And he said he prayed for the best. But, and then this other guy, the second guy, basically kind of gave Prevost a grace period. I'm like, how can you give him a grace period at all? You can't give him a grace period. The reason why is because he's compromised. He's just as guilty, or he is guilty, because how can he take people out of office that are guilty of these crimes? How can he hold anyone accountable if he's as guilty? He can't do it. That he can't say, well, I'm Pope. I could do this because I'm trying to clean up the church. You can't do that. It's compromised. So there is no grace period. As far as I'm concerned, there is no grace period. Now it's coming out. Now it's starting to come out. It really needs to step down. But unfortunately, he was voted in. He was voted in by a majority. And why did they do that? Didn't they know? It just says to me is that the ones who didn't vote for him, we've got a few good ones. We've got a few good ones who did not want him. So there's a few good ones. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 20 or 30, but that's not enough. And then the majority of them voted in the guy who's guilty and compromised. Anyway, so this guy, he's like, methinks thou dost protest too much, from Shakespeare. He's complaining about Trump. Yet what he wants done is essentially not only making everyone in America second-class citizens, unless you're really wealthy. Every poor person can't get a home. You have to wait 10 years, Section 8 housing, you have to wait 10 years, and you still have to pay for the housing. And it's very dangerous. Where it is, it's very dangerous. You essentially do live with people who've been in and out of jail and all that stuff and drug deal. I mean, it's a dangerous situation, and you still have to pay for it. In my state, when Trump said he wanted to go in, he said, keep the criminals in jail. We're talking about criminals who've committed repeated crimes against children without going into it, against women without getting into it, drug dealing, serious crimes. They would not hold them in prison. They let them into the community. So what they did was, and so instead of Trump said trying to go in and get them, trying to find them and get them, because if he goes in to the shelters to try to get them. Everybody who's there technically has committed a crime. And if ICE has to arrest them because they came into this country illegally. So everybody has to get arrested. So what Massachusetts did was put, and other states, we're talking about blue states, move them immediately into neighborhoods all over the state, into neighborhoods that I couldn't afford to live in, and is paying the landlords 5 times the normal rent, paying them thousands of dollars a month, like 4 times senior citizens get, clothing allowance, payments of a lump sum of $15,000 into their SNAP food benefits. And when that runs out, they get more. Medical, everything. Transportation, anywhere they want to go. So what does that do? It doesn't just drive taxes up, but the housing is depleted for, and not only was it impossible to afford housing to begin with, but once you've jacked up the price of housing where landlords can get all this money, you've priced everyone but the ultra wealthy out of housing. You've moved people who are criminals, who are known criminals. I'm not talking about the good people who haven't committed a crime, though breaking into the country is a crime. Coming here and taking benefits away from poor people and having the government saying, no, you didn't earn enough. You don't get enough. No, you have to wait 10 years for a house. Yeah, that sounds like pretty abusive. And you have to pay for it when you get it. Yeah. Oh yeah, you have to be on the street. But if you're on the street, you see, if you're homeless, you have to have an address to get benefits. So you can't get benefits. And you can't get housing because they have to know we have to know where you are so we can say when the house is ready in 10 years or your apartment is ready in 10 years, we have to be able to find you. So you have to keep housing for 10 years. But I'm homeless. I'm about to lose my home. Oh, somehow the state found, and we're talking about Democrat states all over the country, found housing in the best neighborhoods. The neighborhoods because, we don't have enough. It's not diverse enough. We're so sorry. We're too white. Oh my God. They put this in the newspaper. They put this on they put this on Sun. We're so sorry. So we'll pay to have them here. No, we don't want them. They're Americans. They were born, but they're poor, or they were beaten terribly and sexually abused as a child. And they can't, they go on live streams and they ramble on incessantly, and nobody listens to them, and they don't get any subs. So they're trying to make money, but they can't. They have the privilege of dying on the streets of America. We'll take the house. We're ready to take their home, to give it to people who need it, came over the border, who will vote for us. So, I could speak about myself, but I know my story is other people's, just like this man on the street who says he's got cancer, and he says he doesn't have a home. And he goes, I can't get benefits. I can't get help. I can't get it. I said, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. And this spring, I'm going to be where you are. And, how could that possibly be? You're wearing lip to look at you. There is nothing. There is absolutely nothing. But they will do this so they can say, we don't have to feel guilty. We don't have to feel guilty about being wealthy and having places on Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard and homes over whatever, and our educations. We don't have to feel wealthy for being where we are and our titles, because we are bringing in people who are underprivileged around the world, whom these people down here see these people with white skin, or these, yeah, they are, but I think they voted the wrong way. We don't consider them Latino or Black anymore. Okay, they voted the wrong, but they're American. Their very existence. We want Black, but see, we've got people from Haiti, we've got people from Africa. We can bring them in, and it's like I'm seeing this happening. I'm going, why don't you just bring in people from the inner cities? Why don't you bring like poor families that like are having a really hard time, who don't want their children growing up in an inner city, actual Americans? Why don't you bring in them? I mean, like, forget about me, let me die. That's okay, even though my ancestors were classified as Black. Okay, let me die. That's okay. Forget about, remember when child abuse and domestic violence, O.J. Simpson and wife abuse. It's. Do you ever notice? Have you noticed that it's a different thing, and now it's, of course, it's migrants and it's people who want to switch. I mean, they keep changing what the victim status, the most victimist victim is. When I was a kid, nobody noticed that anything happened. I used to tell authorities when I thought a child was being hurt at home. I as a little child, I used to help. Nobody, and neither did the teachers, even though I showed all the signs, could tell anything was happening to me. And it continued through adulthood. And now, even after they're both dead, for reasons that I don't want to get into, because I have a wealthy, well-educated family. And they want to put me with the elderly and the disabled and the drug addicts because I'm poor. But there's no room in those houses because you have to be on a waiting list. I can't even get in there either. So anyway, I saw this sign when I was walking downtown, getting back to the sign, which okay, I gave you all the evidence how the North was not a place of slavery, unless you count like if you enslave your children or you enslave, some girl. People don't know that the slavery is actually going on. Okay, that proves Abraham Lincoln getting elected twice, Republican Party was formed to abolish slavery, the Underground Railroad who came to the North, blah blah blah. It said, and there was a picture of an African slave on there. No doubt. I mean, African slave, the South, and it said slavery in, and then my city's name. Historic Society presents that kind of slavery, the plantation kind of Southern plan that the North fought the South to end. And I'm going, what the bullshit Marxist thing am I seeing? And I just, what was it, a few weeks ago, I heard about the state teaching the white kids that they're responsible for all this, and they're racist and they're evil. The schools are teaching this. And now the Historic Society is no Underground Railroad. You got everybody. It took 20 years to get that Sojourner Truth statue up. The Sojourner Truth, the Underground Railroad, they came here to be free. Texas, the North, would not let Texas in for 10 years because they didn't want to expand the slave state. The North, the South didn't give Abraham Lincoln one vote. They didn't one vote. Not one vote came from the South. He was elected twice. All the votes came from the North because nobody wanted slavery. What do you mean that kind of slavery? I could see other kinds of slavery. Not that kind of slavery. What are you talking about? And it's like, I feel like going there, you go, the Southern Italians came here, you gave them the jobs that the slaves would do, the freed slaves. Now the slaves would have done, but now that they're free and American citizens, you're giving these are the only jobs that they can do, the jobs that will kill them, because you don't care if they die. That kind of job. So they're given slave wages. We're talking 10 cents, 9 cents a day. Are you kidding? And they can't go to the cops because they're considered Black, or still even when they were white, they were still considered Black, and the cops would not hear them that they needed help. But it's like, and everybody forgets this one. This is another Marxist thing. This is another Marxist lie. How many times do we keep hearing, even from freaking Nancy Pelosi, who's half Northern Italian, half Southern Italian? I think she pretends she's Southern Italian. Because I don't know. Whatever. Somehow she's going to be oppressed in some way. About the internment camps, who, by the way, was put up with the first hero of the Democrat Party, still the hero of the Democrat Party, FDR. You mean the Democrat? And she gets up and talks about as if it was really the conspiracy of the Republican white people in America that did this, unbeknownst to FDR, about the Japanese going to the internment camps. Do you know who else they put in those internment camps? The reason why they say Japanese is because we think Japanese people are not white. When in Japan, they don't consider themselves not white. Not only do they consider themselves white, or at that time, the emperor, Hirohito, was declared war on the world. He wanted the entire world to be the Japanese Empire. At the same time as Adolf wanted to do the same thing, wanted the entire world. He was a globalist. It was the acronym meant National Workers' Party of Germany, which technically is a cousin social workers party. It's a socialist party, National Socialist Workers Party of Germany. USSR, United Soviet Socialist Republic. They're both socialist. It's both they're both cousins. Fascism and socialism are cousins to each other. He had his party, and he also in communism, you get rid of God. There is no God. The state is your God. Something takes the place of God, and it's the state. And the state changes the rules all the time, and you don't know. It's like an abusive. It's like living in an abusive situation where your abuser sets the laws. You do something, you think you're following the laws, then you get beaten because the abuser changed the laws and you didn't know about it. That's what communism does. In fascism, you can have your religion, but as long as you put the fascist party first, the Nazi party first, above your religion, if you put the Nazi party before your God, above your God, it isn't that you're really keeping your religion. It's kind of like exactly what they're doing in China, which this Pope is also allowing. There's a strain of an underground true Catholic Church. They're trying to practice Catholicism. And then there is the state Catholic Church, which is basically, there's a picture set of Jesus. It's the dear leader. It's the laws. It's not the laws of God. It's the laws of the Communist Party. And the last Pope and this one basically not just gave a nod, but officially sanctioned the bishop, this particular church, the bishop and the church that's essentially the Communist Party. It's not really the Catholic Church at all, it's the Communist Party. So that is an example of right now today of what the Nazi Party did by saying that you can be Jewish, you can be any of this as long as you put the Nazi Party first. The Nazi Party comes first. The Catholic Church, that's not the Catholic Church. The church in China, that's the state Catholic Church, is essentially you put the Communist Party church first. You can pretend, you can play going to church. That's what that is. It's going on today exactly what the Nazi Party did. But then both the Nazi and Hirohito and the Empire of Japan wanted to take over the whole world. That's why it's very different than nationalism. It's nothing to do with nationalism. Nationalism meaning your country. It has to do with national. Actually, the word should be patriotism. Patriotism means fatherland. It's a better word than national, but it doesn't make any difference. We're talking about one country. What both of them did, they wanted to take over the entire world. And Japan, lest we forget, bombed Pearl Harbor, even though FDR knew that Pearl Harbor was going to be bombed. He had the documents on his desk that it was going to be bombed, and he did not move the soldiers out. He let it happen. Why did he let it happen? He let it happen because he said when he was campaigning that not one drop, he promised to all the mothers of America that not one drop of their son's blood would be shed on a foreign soil. And he broke his promise, but he basically let it happen so he could break his promise. So everybody would get upset that these men died, that Japan conquered us. And Japan sent spies over, I forget the guy's name. There was a spy, a young man, his name escapes me, that came over from Japan to figure out where to do it and how to do it. They came over to do it, to specifically do that. So as bad as internment camps are, and I think it's bad that anybody was put in one, they never say that the Italians were also put in them. They were taken across the country in a train, and the lights were out the whole time. There was a guy with a machine gun in back. So if they try to escape, if they can escape, they would get machine gunned. So they would have to stand the entire way across the country, because it's across the entire country. If you were from the east, it's across the entire country. Nobody talks about that. They lost their livelihoods. They lost everything they owned. They didn't see their family until they were free, their family for years, and many of them died. Nobody talks about the Italians going. So the Marxists, you see, that's the Marxists have switched it to make you think that, oh, it's this country put people who are not white in the internment camps. Well, first of all, Japan conquered us. Italy didn't conquer us. Italy didn't conquer us. I don't know if you realize that. Or didn't blow up anything here. Japan declared war on America officially. Jimmy Carter got rid of all the Iranians in America when they took the hostages. They took some American hostages. They didn't declare war on us. They took American hostages. I don't know, like 48 or something like that. That's a bad thing. But he got rid of everyone who was Iranian in this country had to leave, had to go back to Iran, even if they were going to college or if they've been living there here for years. They've proven themselves. And he's a Democrat, is another Democrat. And of course, I'm going to get rid of the lie right now, immediately. even if whether you think Italians are white or not. But if you think Italians are white, that totally destroys the argument that America put Japanese people in there because they were not white. That totally destroys it if you think Italians are white, which that can go either way depending on if it's north or south. In Japan and in the East, they prize white, they like not this kind of white skin, not the white skin of Caucasian people, but actually white. The whiter the better, paper white. They consider that beautiful. So how could these people who you consider not white in all these Asian countries, the whiter the better, paper white is the most beautiful, and somehow it's it kind of, when you think about the way the Marxist thinking is really bizarre. So not only do they not consider themselves not white, they don't even consider white people white. They consider white as the most beautiful thing ever, especially for a woman. White, paper white, absolute. So in this country, we have brightening serums or things that brighten the face, because we're not allowed to say white because that's politically incorrect. Over there, it's called whitening. That's how screwed up that is. And number two, let me destroy once and for all the lie, the Marxist lie, the Democrat lie, the Nancy Pelosi lie, that they keep pushing that America put the Japanese, because they were not white, in concentration camps, leaving out the fact they did bomb Pearl Harbor and killed a lot of servicemen on American soil. Leaving out that fact, always leaving out that fact. Let's destroy the whole argument that the reason why they went in there is because they were not white, other than the fact that not only were Italians in there, which the Democrat Party doesn't consider, they consider all Italians white, even though the Northern Italians to this day consider the Southern Italians black. And America used to officially classify Southern Italians as black until Prohibition, because they wanted the alcohol. So anyway, that story is earlier in the video. Let's wipe that out. Who else went in those concentration camps? If Italian isn't enough, because the Democrats don't consider Italians as not white, they put Germans in there too. Even if you were a German, you're a good-working German, a lot of Germans were in America. They had nothing to do with the Nazi Party. They weren't even there when the Nazi Party formed. Germans, how white can you get? The England, the people who came and immigrated to England over long periods of time. German, the Hallstatt people who were the Celts. The Celts came from Germany. They moved up, they moved around, they went into Gaul, they went into England. Germans, white, Germanic people, white. But they will keep telling you, America put Japanese in internment camps. You never forget. And I hear this from everybody, even Neil Oliver, who's hooked up with Candace Owens now. I mean, it doesn't matter what she said, he's hooked up with her. It's like, no, even the Italians, even if you think that's borderline, all the Democrats, all the Marxists think that Italians are white. Germans. So that makes the whole Japanese thing, they're there because they're not white, a lie. That makes that whole thing a lie. Now, first of all, they bombed this country. They made war on America, and they actually are the only country that bombed on American soil. So another thing I'm just going to add, I was thinking the other night, I didn't say, and it actually should have belonged to the live stream the other night, which is, I think, is really interesting, about the Nazi Party or Adolf and stuff like that. People keep saying that he was a Christian. He's a Christian. Well, the Catholic Church prayed for him on his birthday on April 20th. Well, first of all Catholics, Christians are supposed to pray for especially the most evil to convert. Of course, they're going to say that so you don't come in and bomb the Vatican or take over the Vatican and make the Vatican. Of course, the Vatican now is a part of the whole globalist thing. Anyway, now, there's a connection. They keep the Marxists, though Marxism is communism, which is a cousin to fascism, which are both atheistic. Because in fascism, you have to put, in Nazism, you have to put, as long as you put your religion, your God second. If you put your God second, if God is second, that means the Nazi Party is your God. Just like in communism, the Nazi Party is your God. It's atheistic. You've reduced it to atheism, just like what the communist Chinese have done to the Catholic Church. It's essentially, it's a state religion. Communist Catholic Party. At this, the fact that the Pope acknowledged that, the Pope has sanctioned it. Essentially, it tells you that he's completely one with the globalist, communist, everything. And of course, he's complaining about Trump because he doesn't. When I said methinks thou dost protest too strongly, is because about Trump. It's because and the reason why we want to stop the whole migration. One of the reasons is because of the slavery, the slavery that goes on, human trafficking, making everyone second-class citizens unless you're very wealthy. All that's evil. Impoverishing people, putting people on the street, because you're opened up the border and there's nearly 9 billion people in the world. Who is going to pay, and how are you going to pay, and where is the land, and where are the doctors, where is the food going to come from, who and where are you going to grow you just keep that open. It's like it's impossible. It's a no-win situation for the Pope to chastise, be so pro this happening. And we know the reason why it's happening. It's been happening for a long, long time. They've been supporting this. And Michael Savage used to say, always said, it's to fill the pews, that there's a funnel. The Catholic Church was funneling people across the border and helping them into for, I don't know, going back 50 years. It's been happening for a long time because of all the scandals and all the payouts, that the church has lost so much money and so much real estate, that the church gets 80% of its income from the United States government, supposedly to resettle these people. So they resettle these people for $88 billion. And then the price of housing for us goes up 5 times. And also our taxes go up to pay for them, and because they get everything paid for, and our health care. And then we don't have enough doctors anymore. Everything else goes up. And you're basically pushing people to the brink where they realize that their lives don't matter. And that's why you need the drugs coming over the border and the fentanyl to kill the pain, because it's a painkiller. And then people end up dying of it because they take the fentanyl to kill the pain, and they end up dying of it. because they realize that their lives are worthless. And a pope who is supposed to be representing Jesus Christ, who the children were only worth half of that of an adult, and women were always, even when they're adults, they're still worth half that of a man. He changed that, made them witnesses to his resurrection, the first witnesses to his resurrection, amongst other things that he did, forgiving them, and all that stuff. He's basically, he's in party with basically annihilating people, annihilating as many people as possible by doing this, amongst the other things like eating the bugs and the environment and blessing the block of ice. Because he's blessing the block of ice, we all know that, because the Arctic, we're always worried about the Arctic melting, when most of the Earth's history there has been no ice caps. Now we live in a global, it's a box, in an ice box planet now, and most of the history of the Earth it hasn't been, and life was teeming on this Earth during the dinosaurs, 250 million years, teeming with life with no ice. And then there was the ice age, and then there was no ice again, and life continued. So he's praying for ice, and winter kills. Yet the most important thing he should be praying for is saving souls. Yet you save your souls if you save the earth. That we found out recently that the Biden administration order of operation was the environment was first, green energy was second, and people were at the bottom. And Trump has put people first. See, that order is really, really off. And the order, his order, Jesus Christ came to save souls, human beings, to heal people. It was important. Lives were important, not just souls, but the human body healed. The Marxists are against fascism, yet at the same time, their belief is fascism. Stalin wrote Mussolini a letter and said, Stalin, who was the guy who ran the Soviet Union, if you don't know who he is, Mussolini, fascist dictator. There's Adolf. Mussolini wasn't as bad as Adolf. Fascistic ideology, Adolf was far worse, but Stalin wrote Mussolini a letter and said that congratulations, you have implemented communism perfectly. And you have to think about that. So the Marxists would have to think about that. But I don't think they would. I don't think they could understand it. They hate fascism so much, yet they are. And not only are they in that way. I was talking to you about Madame Blavatsky the other night, and the whole New Age movement, the progression of the New Age movement, spiritualism, and she turned out to be this fraud. She was a hoaxer, that she's talking to the dead, whatever, that she was faking everything. She knew nothing, and she was a wild woman on many levels. She invented this ideology about a superior race. Now, the Tibetan, the whole Aryan thing, and the Nazis believe that the Aryans came, or that's where they ended up is in Tibet. That's where all the whole Aryan race was, in Tibet. and that they went to Tibet to look for it. And her idea is that the ascended masters of Tibet talked to her, and she got all this information. But this was this superior Aryan race, and the idea of rude races, but that was the superior race, and that she believed that the white race was superior, that the Aryan Germanic white race was superior, and they were connected to this Tibetan thing. Now, what am I getting at? Marxists, they hate fascism. Yet this belief system and spiritualism and the whole psychic and the Wiccan and all that stuff and all these occult practices, Adolf was a atheist. You have to read enough about World War II and Adolf and everything, and you have to know enough people that knew all this stuff, that really knew all this stuff, instead of knowing what Marxism has rewritten. They've rewritten history. That Adolf was an atheist, and it was Himmler and Hess that were occultists. They were looking for the Ark of the Covenant. Remember the whole, what's his face, Spielberg movies, Indiana Jones. They were occultists. They went to Tibet. They were looking for the Aryan root races. That's where they got the swastika from, was Tibet. It was a good luck symbol. It was a power symbol. It brought you, they took it and they twisted it. They flipped it over until it's going in a different direction. But they thought that they could get power, and that was connected to the Aryan race. I worked for a Tibetan store. I remember these two people, they were looking in the case at some embroideries and silks from Tibet. And they saw on the embroidery swastika, which is interesting because, I have been seen in Native American, Navajo jewelry, you see the swastika. Somehow they also have the swastika. It came through Asia. It's a very ancient power symbol. I'll never wear it because everybody will call me a Nazi. But it came through Asia. That's the reason why the Navajos have it and the Tibetans have it. And that's where it came from. But it's an ancient power symbol. And of course, they took something that the Asians, which I thought the Marxists and the progressives, the Democrats loved because they're not white, they considered that a good symbol, and everybody should be pissed that was totally corrupted, the way it was corrupted. Anyway, they looked at that, and there's this poor woman who was a Tibetan refugee who ran the store, who was darker than, there's China. If you think of China and Japan, they're white compared to Tibetans. She could be as dark as probably as dark as Michelle Obama. That skin tone, which is a good thing. Okay, it's a good thing. They were dark, very, very dark people, and of course these were progressives. From a progressive woke town. They asked her, "What's that?" And she told them what it was, and they looked at her like she'd committed the most horrendous crime in the world. And she said, "Oh, no, it's symbol. It's a good luck symbol. It's a good luck symbol. It's sacred." And they just looked at her like she'd committed a heinous crime and left. She didn't know better. She was stupid. She didn't know better. These Marxists, they've rejected Christianity or Judeo-Christian, and they've adopted all this occult stuff. And it's come down through Madame Blavatsky. You got to really blame Blavatsky, and then there was Crowley, and Of course, he was a Satanist, black magic worker. And then Gerald Gardner, who created Wicca, belonged to Liam. They belonged to the same group. And Aleister Crowley wanted Gerald Gardner to take on his mantle, but Gardner wanted to be a little bit lighter, didn't want to really do the black magic stuff. But it's still all connected. It's all connected. And they're all into this Blavatsky psychic kind of, and she was all into ancient Egypt, the magic of ancient Egypt. And what do they believe in, these people? They do black magic, they do Wicca, they do the occult. And that's what the Nazis were into. And they got it from Blavatsky. It all came down from there. And they're all into this stuff. So they're into the same stuff. These Marxists who are blind, who not only are they making heroes out of these people who held the Aryan race was the best race, white race. They also have made heroes out of what's his face, Castro, and the other one, not Indigo Montoya, the one with the beret and the, what's his name? I forgot his name. I got a light shining in my eye. I'm getting a migraine. What's his name? Castro, and the other one there that everybody wears a T-shirt of, who killed all the homosexuals and hated all the black people. It's the same thinking, yet somehow they've adopted it, and they think that therefore, what is the name? What is the name of that guy? The light in my eyes here, I've lost the name of it. Che Guevara. I should know. I used to listen to Evita, the Evita production all the time. Then I got sick of it. But Che Guevara, yeah, same thing. Hate black, pro-white. Hate religion. Atheism. There's a link. Adolf, atheist. And what are they? What are they all? They want the environment. Adolf was a rabid environmentalist, getting rid of people, getting rid of races, sterilizing people. He didn't. They tell you that he wants to close the baby removal clinics. No, he opened more baby removal clinics because of eugenics. He wanted a perfect race. No, that's also a lie, they tell you. And another thing, what else are they into? Everything they're into is all that. Okay. We go from the religion, the belief system that all stems from the superior race. And who do they think they are? Essentially, they think they're a superior race. Essentially, they think that you deserve to die because there's some kind of stigma of being an American citizen. They're also American citizens, and yet for some reason they're better because they adhere to this Marxist belief system. They also, he was a rabid environmentalist. Being a rabid environmentalist, he was also a vegan. He was a vegan. There's a famous picture of Adolf and Eva at Berchtesgaden. And he's passed out. They're both passed out. And they're not passed out because they've been drinking. You know how Marxists love pot and they hate alcohol? Well, he didn't drink. He didn't drink alcohol, and he didn't eat meat. Michael Savage said once that I'm just passing it along because it's hysterical. He said that World War II never would have happened had Adolf gnawed on a leg of lamb and drank a glass of scotch. And when you think about it, probably because his blood sugar had dropped so low That's why he was passed out. See, his blood sugar was all over the place. So it kind of explains how crazy he was. And it kind of made, and alcohol would have made him pass out, given him he had too much of it, he would have had a hangover. So you wonder why Marxists are so crazy, why everybody's so crazy, and they're adhering to violence, just like the Nazis did. Well, a lot of them are vegans, and the blood sugar, unless you do it right, say, oh, there's nothing wrong with veganism. Well, most vegans don't eat properly. You're supposed to have a balanced diet, and they don't do it. You have to really know what they're doing. It's basically they're eating potato chips or ice or whatever they're eating, or candy, and then they smoke pot, and they're a vegan. I mean, they don't know what they're doing, and you wonder why. If it's erratic blood sugar, first of all, you're going to be completely out of it. You're going to be in a dream state. You're not going to get enough sleep because your blood sugar is going to be all over the place. You're not going to be able to differentiate between truth and lies. What's real history, what's fake history. When they're told that this is the real history, the rewritten history, and the history that you're being told is a lie. But if you're partially in a dream state because your blood sugar is spiking, is going up and down, and you're not getting any sleep, and of course pot, you don't drink alcohol, you smoke pot, because pot is natural, because it's a plant, and alcohol is not made from a plant. Somehow it's pure in some way. I'm being sarcastic about the plant thing, if you didn't catch. You're not eating, and then you're smoking that pot. They say that pot, if you smoke it, especially if you smoke it before the age of 26, age 26, your brain is matured, and you need all those hormones. You need to go through puberty because the hormones actually help your brain mature and it develops and becomes, you need the hormones. It forms your intelligence. And so when you hit 20, your brain isn't fully grown until 26. So if you start dousing it in toxic chemicals, you're stunting its growth. So if you have latent schizophrenia or anything that's wrong with you, something that's like, it's going to pop out, that the smoking the pot is going to make it, or taking the THC is going to make it pop out. Because it hits everything at the same time, rather than it being a drug that is at a certain dose consistently hitting a specific target. This is like a spray hitting absolutely everything at any dose, at varying doses. So you kind of wonder, what's all this psychosis? What's causing the whole psychosis thing? And of course, the fact that it's in the water. There's something that begins with an A. I forget the word. Begins with an A. That is decreasing the testosterone in men, and so boys don't want to settle down, or if they do settle down, they want a woman who's a professional, who makes money, because they don't really want to do all the work. There's no fight in them to protect their family, and you wonder why we're having this issue with people kind of wanting to switch. That totally makes sense. So there's a lot of factors there, but just the fact that you've got more vegans than ever, vegetarians, vegans than ever, the people who are not eating properly, and they're not. And there's so much that pot is over the top. As far as people smoking it, they say, well, it's safe. It's a plant. It's better than alcohol. So when you hear that it's safe, you do a lot of it. like salt, we're supposed to have salt, a certain amount of salt. Otherwise, it's actually bad for us if we don't have enough salt. But if we hear that something is, we're supposed to have it or it's good for us, then we'll have too much of something too. So there isn't like, okay, we'll just do once in a while, a little bit at a time, and it stays in your body. So if you get pregnant and you're smoking it, it stays in your body. The blood is shared with the baby, and the baby is affected by it. People don't realize that too, that alcohol leaves the body. I'm not promoting alcohol. I'm showing you the difference, that you've got two evils, but this one stays in the body. You're wondering why there's a psychosis, why people have bought into this upside down world. I looked at that guy today who was homeless, and I'm going, it's like, you're homeless, and yet they're paying 5 times they would for rent to house all these people who've come over, that have come into this state, so they don't get deported, so Trump can't find them. And it's jacking up the price of rent, and they're giving them thousands of dollars a month, just spending money, and the amount for food. I mean, there's a whole list. I didn't get into it with the guy. I'm going, it's like that song from Hair, Easy to Be Hard. And he goes, I know it well. I said, do you only care about the bleeding crowd? Which is, then the hippies were protesting against the Vietnam War. Like, the only problem, just like today, the only problem is the Vietnam War. They'll tell you what the only problem, or the true problem actually is. The most evil problem actually is. The people who are suffering the absolute most at this moment actually, but everyone else is in suffering and nobody else gets help. So the hippies, then, it was the war. It was the Vietnam War. That evil, the man is doing this. The war, that's the most evil thing. And so they protested against that. And the song goes, because the hippies were protesting against that. And if you watch the movie, her husband goes off to become a hippie, and she has a child. He has his child, African-American guy, and great version of it. The movie's got a great version. She got the little boy standing there looking at his father. And she said, sings, do you only care about the bleeding crowd, which is over there? How about a needing friend? I need a friend. It's like you care about them, but I'm right here, right now, and I need you right now. I need help right now. Yet you care about them that are all, you don't even know these people. They're all far away. The Pope cares about all the other people, not the people right here that need help. He ignores them. The Marxists, the progressives, the people who are not eating properly and smoking pot. Their blood sugar is all over the place like it. See, they have so much in common with Hitler, it's insane. And that they're choosing to do so much violence, and also violence by not helping people, by letting people starve, by letting people die in the street. When people are homeless, they only live up to 2 years on the street because of exposure, and they're in and out of the hospital. It costs the government, I forget. I used to have all the numbers. I did a video on homelessness. I'm getting a migraine from this light, so I'm not looking directly at it. I'm trying not to look at it. But the amount is ridiculous compared to if the government paid to house them instead of them being on the street and in and out of the hospital. It's just exorbitant. It's like 90% more. It's a ridiculous amount. And people who go into nursing homes, once you shove them away, you see, we have this thought in society that we have to just, you're poor, You get to live. You live here with all. Yeah, it's not safe. It's not good to raise your kids here if you've got kids. It's not safe if you're a single woman. It's not safe for anybody. But you're poor, so we're wealthy and we are well educated. We live here. We need the homes. We need safe neighborhoods. We're going to shove you off here, just like they do the elderly. Oh, it's so much better for you, just in case you fall. The elderly, incidentally, don't live any longer than 2 years in a nursing home. The same life expectancy as people on the street. The homeless live no more than 2 years. The elderly live no more than 2 years once you put them on the street. Think about that. One is in a hospital facility, supposedly getting taken care of. The other one is on the street, going in and out of the hospital all the time, but living on the street. It's like we don't want to see the elderly anymore. You're taking up our homes. We don't want the home, because there's some homeless that do want to work, that are productive, that are not, they say, drug addicts or criminals or whatever. Just, if they have a chance, just need a little help. Some people just need a little help. Like, I need a little help. I mean, it's like, comparatively speaking, and I know how to survive on nothing. I've gone for 5 winters, like 40 degrees. I go through the winter, 40 degrees, because fuel is so high. It's like, I know how to live with little. So I don't ask for much, but I just need a little. And you're dousing money to people for the sake of voting. We know it's for voting, for keeping them in office, and to make them feel better. Yes, we're taking care. See, I'm not a white supremacist. Very well educated, got a lot of money. Yeah. I made sure, in my town, I made sure that they are so housed so well in the best communities and the best homes. And we pay the landlords 5 times that they would get in rent, and $15,000 into their SNAP cards every time they need food. Plus, they can get extra money off the SNAP card. American citizens don't get the extra money for it. And then we give them $4,000 a month spending money, and an allotment for clothes, an allotment for travel, and healthcare. Yeah, and healthcare. That's why the Democrats have shut down the government, because they want $1.3 trillion to give free health care. More. Can I get any of that money? Do you know how little bit of that money I'll need just to not be on the street? I cannot tell you. Is there any allotment that you can think of me? And you know what? If you took care of me, if you actually cared about not just me, but the poor, like this guy on the street who's got cancer, who cannot get a home, who cannot get help at all from anybody because he's an American, I bet and he's not even a drug addict. I mean, you can use that excuse. Well, they're drug addicts, so just let them die on the street. The drug addicts. That's the life they want to live. No, they don't. Some really don't. Can you siphon out the ones that do want to die and don't, or maybe ask the ones that say they want to die why they want to die? Well, they were sexually abused at home, or it seems like the government hates them and everyone doesn't want them. Their life is useless. Can you find, we've got more. You know what? Help them. Maybe you'll get their vote. Help them. Maybe you will get their vote. 1.3 trillion. And not one Democrat is saying, the cost of living is so high. If somebody in this situation or that situation, or no, you don't get somebody who is on disability or whatever is going on. No, you didn't make enough money because you earned minimum wage. Yeah, you broke your body working at a young age. You broke your body, but you only made this, so you only get this. We have no more. We have no more. But you have so much for all these people who never paid into the system. I'm still paying into the system, who've never paid. And you have so much. And now you're shutting down the government for 1.3 trillion for more. For more. There aren't enough doctors. This medical system is imploding. I have health issues that I can't even get a doctor for because they say now we only take this kind of thing. We don't take that anymore. It's like it's their way of not paying for doctors. People have no idea when you are poor, when you're how quick when you need help, unless you are poor. But I think if you're earning a certain income level, people who are earnings, they have no idea. They just think, oh, the government, somebody will take care of you. Nobody did. When you cared about abused children, you didn't care about me then either. You didn't even know. And it was obvious. It's evil. And they're all atheists, like Hitler, vegans, like Hitler, blood sugar spikes up and down, like Hitler. Just like Michael Savage said, not on a leg of lamb and head with glass, Scotch, World War II probably would never happened. Crazy. This crazy psycho. That alone, forget smoking pot, forget pot or not, that alone causes psychotic behavior because you're sleeping at different times of the day. You're awake and your brain is taking cat naps. You can see a war happening. You can very easily see somebody that can be deceived easily, become paranoid of certain groups. Oh yeah, is that what they're doing? And then he's like, oh, I bet they're doing this and that and the other thing. I can imagine, because they're dreaming, because their brain is taking cat naps. And all these people, it's all and rabid environmentalists. The people are vermin. People are a plague on the earth. In fact, King Charles is quoted saying that, and was it 20 years ago, more than that, is saying that the population levels are rising so high, it's reaching plague levels. See, that's exactly how Hitler thought. People were like plagues, like vermin. You had to get rid of certain groups because they're reaching plague. Once you equate human life with plague levels, human life, there's so many humans that it's like a plague. Recently we went through a plague, didn't we? And we got rid of a lot of humans, didn't we? Wasn't that interesting? Isn't that an interesting connection? And that's when that book that came out 2 months after everyone was put in jail, called The Great Something. And yet I had a video taken down because it was called Resist the R. And I was told that I was spreading conspiracy theories. Boy, the book came out. But the one who announced that was King Charles. Oh, he was Prince Charles at the time, but he's the one who announced the Great RT thing. Reaching plague levels. There's so many humans. It's like a plague. And then his son in 2018 went down to Africa and said that the population is rising so fast in Africa, it's infringing on the wildlife. So we must lower the population of Africa. And the world population is getting so low, so high, that we have to start with Africa. He got so much blowback from that because I was so racist that all of a sudden, 2018, 2019, very shortly after that blowback, all of a sudden, the entire world was a plague. And funny, his father said, it's reaching plague. The human population is getting so high. It's reaching plague levels. Plague epidemic level. That's exactly what he said. That's the interesting thing. And what's even more interesting is that when Ms. Markle and Harry claimed that they were racist, somebody in the royal family said something racist. The only thing she talked about is that it was about her son and possibly the color of his skin. There was concerns, conversations and concerns about the color of his skin. She kind of like made it very vague. He came in and he said something different. Oh yeah, I heard somebody say whatever. It was like one thing, like what he said and she said contradicted each other, which means that she's taking whatever he said as a lie. I personally have heard, and I told you that my family has connections with the unfortunately, with the royal family. And said to my aunt Anne, it was 30 years ago, but my mother laughed her head. It was really funny. So it was really crazy into Islam and what they did to women. It wasn't that bad, the way they treated women. Oh my God. I was cutting off your hand for stealing. It hardly ever happened. Baby. I said to my aunt Anne, because she's talking away, she knew the queen, and it's like, she used to sit at tables like right next to the queen, like really close, because her husband was the commander in the Royal Navy and worked for her. So, and she's talking away, kind of like me. We were kind of similar. She's talking away, and so as she's talking, I said, "Yeah, I heard Prince Charles is going to be coronated in a mosque." I said this to her like 30 years ago. My mother breaks out and laughs because not only what I said was funny, but the fact that Aunt Anne never registered it. She just kept talking. She just totally never registered it. But which brings us back to the Demi thing and what's happening in Britain as well. But I know that what was actually said, Camilla had said, and she was joking. Camilla is known for her sense of humor. And the thing about it is it's like, I mean, you can take it as you want, as you will. Now, it's not always in Africa that you'll find. Some people have afros, and it doesn't mean they even have African in their DNA. And there's some Jewish people that have afros, and they're not like they're not black afros, but it's the type of hair. Maybe it's way far, but we're all way far back. We're all way far back. We're all related. It's so ridiculous. It's all of us are either 0 to 4% African, Homo sapien, that came out of Africa, that met some Neanderthals. They say it happened twice. There was 2 doses, one way, way, way far back, and then when everybody thinks it actually happened, but there may have been 2 doses. But everybody has 0 to 4%. Some people Africa that have absolutely no, but not all Africans. Some Africans actually do have, because they say they may have come in and gone back out again and kind of picked up some DNA. So if you have if you test say you're African American, mother, father, as far back as you can go, and they tell you have 4% Neanderthal DNA or white DNA, non-African, whatever. You would basically, oh, well, somebody must have had sex with somebody at some point, but you would be considered 100% African American, wouldn't you? Some white people have 1 or 2% Neanderthal compared to African DNA. But they're white. How does that happen? So their DNA basically says that they're all African, but except for like a couple percentage points. That's a mind F that Marxists could not understand. It's because the proximity to the sun that their ancestors lived. If you live right under the equator, you're going to have to get darker because you have to protect the body. Your body needs UV rays, but only needs a small amount. If you get too much, your body cannot produce vitamin D, and you get birth defects and all sorts of diseases and health problems. That's one of the problems during the Black Plague, is that a lot of people needed a lot of DNA. And you need vitamin D and K2, and you have to take it with a fatty omega acid as well for it to work. If you're above a certain age, like elderly, you have to take it orally. You can't go sit outside in the sun. You don't absorb it anymore in the sun. So if you're an African and you move all the way up to Sweden or the Arctic, you're going to have problems because you are like, you're going to have more, especially when they say the African American community had more health problems during the plague and all that stuff. And they said it was racism. It's actually where they live. It has something to do with where they live. Because if you live in Chicago and you've got very dark skin and it's wintertime and your body needs vitamin D, because vitamin D protects us from all sorts of diseases. There's so many, it even helps produce estrogen. It's the thing that the body needs to make estrogen. And when you're deficient in estrogen, then all these other things go wrong. So women need to take more vitamin D when they get older. So if you so you're living in a cold climate with not enough sun, and your skin is basically blocking the ray, whatever little rays that you get, living in a higher climate like Chicago, you're going to get a lot of diseases simply because of that. And you need to take, and the doctors basically say, you need to take X amount of vitamin D, which is tens of thousands of whatever, K2, and you need to take it with fat. It's fat soluble. You need to take it with fat. But basically, they need to just advise you on health. And they don't advise you. Instead, they say it's racisms. It's racisms. It's kind of racisms, because if you basically are forcing people to live up there, and like in red zones, there's like zones that they basically had African Americans live, but beginning and outside of those zones, even if it's still in an area with too little sun, and they have no idea, because it's like you and nobody until recently had any idea about vitamin D. So it's just, and that's the only reason why eventually your body starts losing the melanin. And if you have your body, basically, if a child is born in a climate that doesn't have much sun, and you've got some white in you, you've got some white DNA in you, the body will grab the white DNA. Like, I've got really dark relatives, especially on my mother's side, really dark, curly black hair and dark skin. And my mother couldn't figure out why I was so white, because she said it must be my father's fault. She just couldn't understand why I was so light skinned. It's because, that's just what your body does to survive. So anyway, the whole idea of race is absolutely ridiculous when you think of that. And they did a study, and you find it on search the scientific search for the real atom. It was on PBS. You find it. The progressives did it. The woke people did it, so you can trust it. And they found that every man, they checked men all over the world, and they found that every single man, that's why this whole thing about the whole white skin is evil and all that stuff, it's just where you're living. It's just where your ancestors are living. If your DNA says that you're African, but else, whatever. Anyway, they found that every single man is related to the same man, the scientific atom, in Africa. They traced the roots to this guy, and he's kind of like, there's the tree, the genetic tree, and then there's the bottom of the stump, and the originating DNA is from one man in Africa. All the men of the world. All the men of the world. Apparently, he must have been the strongest fighter, so he got the most women. He produced the most babies. Maybe the other guys weren't even having babies. And so his genes were dominant. And and this is a long time, so it just spread all over the world. So there's no such thing as race. That's why it's just a human race. And they also said, which I thought was extremely interesting, which would also blow the Marxist minds out of the water. See, this is all about voting. This is all about voting and staying in power. This has nothing to do with humanity or caring for people or who's really suffering. Just depending, like, dole out the money depending on who's suffering. But at the same time, you can't. There's almost 9 billion people in the world, which King Charles says it's plague levels, plague proportions. We got to lower the population. That's what happens when you live in a golden cage for so long and you're told that God picked you to be king. That's what happens mentally to you. So they said, which I thought one of the most interesting parts of that whole production, that if you check the genetics of, like, let's say you went to a tribe of apes, of any apes or monkeys. They just mentioned apes and monkeys, whatever. I guess because we're related genetically. We're also related to mice, mammalian populations, because the Ice Age hit and killed off all the dinosaurs, that the mammalians started to grow, which is the mice. And then everything else grew out of them. These different species grew out of that. But because we're closer, so they mentioned apes and monkeys and all that stuff. And they said if you went to the specific type of, let's say, ape, and the species, same species, living in the same area, within the same family, same parents, genetically, a person who's an Inuit and a person who lives in England or America or South America or Africa or South Asia or East Asia or whatever are more genetically closely related. These people from all these different races, that's why there's no such thing as race, are more closely related than two apes, or let's pick an animal that I like, porcupines or panda bears. Okay. Let's just we can pick another. It doesn't make any difference what the animal is. Of the same species, because there's a lot of these animals have different species. Same species from the same exact family are more genetically apart, less related, genetically distinct than a human being from another family and another race living in another part of the world. We are all more closely related than that. And that is what you'll never find in your freaking Marxist books, because they don't eat properly. They've got blood sugar spikes like Adolf, and they're all looking for the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, they're all occultists. They're all occultists. They have so much in common with the Nazis. And what do the Nazis and the communists do, who are basically the same thing, because both of them consider the Communist and Nazi Party have to be their God. It's nothing to do with what religion you have. You can even be Jewish. We know we can name some Jews that worked for the Nazi Party that did very well, that they did very well. You just have to put the Nazi Party first. And what did that? If you can think of who that person is, they say they don't believe in God. They're an atheist. They're an atheist. So what did I say about the Nazi Party? Nazi Party and communism has something in common. They're atheists, but they're actually not. It's the party that's the God, because the party makes the laws. It's not the 10 Commandments. It's not like Jesus, love your neighbor as yourself. And your God will love your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. None of those laws. None of those laws. It's laws that they make up anytime they want to. So they have, and so the laws of these Marxist movements and all these woke progressive movements, this new victim suit, like the victim, like domestic violence, abused women. I belong to that group. Abused wives, girlfriends, all that stuff, like the O.J. Simpson thing. Remember, everybody cared at that time. Abused children, all sorts of kinds of trauma and abuse. They don't seem to care about that at all whatsoever. Doesn't exist. Like Virginia Giuffre, which people who are pro the royal. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you about the story of the royal family. I'll finish that story. Pro-royal family damned her, demeaned her, said that she's the one who went out and got the girl. Really, it was. She's the one who got the girls. Really, this was all her fault. She's the one guilt. In her biography, she said that her father sexually abused her. Usually, people who end up becoming prostitutes in any way, or drug addicts. See, prostitutes, drug addicts, switching things around, if you know what I mean, were sexually abused. So you wonder why they have that lifestyle. Oh, why did they? And she said she was trying to turn her life around when she was 16. How in 16 do you have the guts? I mean, you at that time, if you're coming through abuse, you haven't healed from it yet. But that's when Ghislaine Maxwell came to see her and said, you could get a job being a masseuse for this wealthy guy. And she goes, well, maybe I could serve my whole life around if I get a job and I make some money and stuff like that. See, at 16, you think like that. At 16, the way I am, the age I am, I think like this. Still, the trauma of abuse never really, especially if you keep getting it keeps going on. But that's what happens. You keep falling back into the pattern of abuse. It starts. That's when, and it makes sense to me that's when it started, is that she was sexually abused. I thought of that's probably the case. And the people who are pro-monarchists, are pro, Prince Andrew, kept saying it was her fault. How can you blame essentially a child? That's why it's like children, people below a certain age don't have the power to make certain decisions. It's not really their fault. But anyway, the story about anybody who's been listening to me, you want to know what it was that was said. Okay, now let's just put in a caveat. I wasn't there. I don't know for sure. though this somehow makes sense. This is how I got the whole thing about that we're all actually related to the Africans, because it has to do with what supposedly she said. I don't know if she said, I wasn't there, but this is what I heard because I have family and people that know, that are pretty sure of what was said. But let's put in the caveat, I don't know for sure. They could be lying. I don't know. But the joke kind of, suppose it was a joke. Well, anyway, she's the greatest person in the world, Camilla. She has the greatest sense of humor. That's why the king loves her so much, because she was funny and Diana just wasn't. That's why it didn't work. So she has this really dry sense of humor. And it sounds like her sense of humor. Somebody could have made it up and they told it to people I know, and this isn't true. Well, I'm saying that might not be. Look, I'd say, look, Camilla, that's not really a joke, because sometimes that actually happens. It has nothing to do with somebody who is biracial, which her mother is biracial, so she's less than her mother. Technically, she's like, her father said technically she's about 12%, because gauging on how much the mother was. So technically she's just playing this for all she can get. I know, it's like, how can you say anything against the monarchy when now you're saying stuffing against her? Well, they all have faults. How about this? We're all guilty of something. We all have faults. Anyway, she said that the child might come out. The child might have a ginger hair type from her, hair type from him. I mean, you could, now that might not be true, but it sounds like a dry sense of humor. But I have to say, I didn't hear it myself. It might not be true. But the truth is that if you see, go watch, I'll tell you, a specific person who has no African DNA. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I'm part Egyptian, so there you go. But then again, we all do. Oh my God, we're all either 4% Neanderthal. We're all at least 96% African. This is ridiculous. Anyway, his name is Victor Garber, and he's an actor, singer. He's old now. Might not be alive. He played Jesus in Godspell, the movie Godspell, I believe made in 1973. And very white skin. I don't even think he's Rh negative. Very, very white skin. Ultra white. Whiter than me. And he has a gingery reddy, that particular hair type. And he has it in the movie. Well, he has it. He wears it like that in the movie, which is kind of, in a way, it's kind of nice, because it says it's kind of, in a way, if you think about it, maybe the reason why they picked him was because maybe it says that Jesus is a combination of all of us. But Victor Garber is Jewish, by the way. He is Jewish, and he played Jesus, and most of the cast of Jesus Christ Superstar and of Godspell were Jewish, you know. Not that I think that's a good thing. Nobody had a problem with it. But it's like, I went to see the cast of Jesus Christ Superstar, and he's dead now. Not Barry, the one who played Caiaphas. Oh, did he look different? Boy, he looked different, and he smoked a lot in his life, and he was tall and taut and thin and blue-eyed and dark black, kind of guy, looker when he was in the movie, and it's completely different. And he said that Really nice guy. I talked to him for a long time. Really, really. And I had him sign a picture for me, picture of him, and it's talked to him and Ted Neely for a long time. He was a really nice guy. And in the parking lot, he honked his horn and he waved to me. Hey, he called out to me. He liked me. And really nice guy. And he died this past year. And he said that because he's Jewish, he said that the reporters asked him, do you have a problem with Jesus Christ Superstar? You know, the production, Jesus Christ Superstar, this production, and the fact that you're Jewish, you know? And he looked at him and said, 98% of the cast is Jewish. Who has a problem with it? Nobody has a problem with this. See, even back then, that was 1970, that was 72 or 73. That both of those movies were made at the same time. And back then, you got woke reporters and asking and thinking these same things. And the people in it, like said, you know, there were still normal, non-woke people who just like got along and didn't care, didn't have a problem with Christianity, didn't have a problem with the production, didn't have a problem with anything, like totally understood. But anyway, that's what so I'm just thinking, and it might not be true, but I kind of wonder, I go, that is kind of nice, because if kind of the fact that he had his hair was essentially was an afro, that's what it, and maybe that means that he kind of, Jesus is a composite of everyone in the world, you know, it doesn't leave anybody out, essentially. And I kind of wonder, I'd like to talk to the people who, and they might say, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. Jesus is a composite of everybody can identify with it. I'm glad you picked up on that. It might be that nobody was ever thinking about it. But anyway, just to give you a light on all these problems and why the Marxists are so insane. We hit on that. Why the Marxists have more in common with Adolf than they could possibly imagine. We hit on that. To get to know somebody who is on the street with cancer, that is homeless, that can't get any help, in a state where, in a state, in a city that's so woke, that cares so much about the bleeding crowd instead of a needing friend, like the song Easy to Be Hard. And it reminds me of during the Biden administration, I saw what was going on in Canada, how they were offering the injection, not the plague injection, a different injection, to people who were either disabled or suicidal, wasn't talking them out of it and giving them value. Their life is valuable, while Canada too is taking and paying for it, migrants, as many as possible. All these countries are. There was a news clip on this. You could see that he was a born and bred Canadian guy. And he was in the hospital. They were treating him for some issue, like they're treating this guy. He is getting treatment for the cancer. And it was freezing cold outside. It was Canadian winter. And he was sane. He wasn't an alcoholic. He was just a very normal, sane person. And he goes, I don't want to be homeless anymore. Can you please help me? I need a home. You're giving me health care, but could you help me? I need a home. And he said they offered me the injection. Oh, we can offer you the injection to delete yourself, but we can't give you a home. But they're giving homes to migrants that they're bringing in from other countries. Not just home. This has been going on for a long time. I've been hearing about this from people who I know in Canada. Not only houses, fully furnished. Then it was TV sets. Now we don't say TV sets anymore, but everything paid for, everything fully paid for. They don't even need to work. And you could say, well, he should work for his money. Maybe he wants to work. Sometimes you can't get jobs if you don't have a home. You have to have an address. Or sometimes you can't get a home if you've been through a bankruptcy. If you had hard times, been through a bankruptcy, they won't rent to you. You can't even get an apartment, even if you are working like a dog. There's some people in this country who are working like a dog, working several dog jobs, but they can't get an apartment because they have no references, or they've been through a bankruptcy. But if you come from across the border, they'll put you right in the best neighborhoods in the city. So they left you off. The news report let you off that because he couldn't take another Canadian winter. And how quickly will you take that injection, knowing that they're paying for people who've never paid into the system, who were not born there, as many people as they can possibly take in, from soup to nuts, top to bottom, everything. And he's saying, they're giving me an injection to kill myself. But they won't give me a home. I just want a roof over my head. I don't want to be in the winter cold. And they're choosing to pay everything for them. It's like, I can't even live in my own neighborhood. I can't afford anything. And I don't have a family member, or only person I do doesn't have the money to help me at all. And I've just been advised that, oh yeah, you can live downtown. You know that the elderly people are afraid to live there because they're drug addicts and the drug dealers come in, and because they've shoved them all together. They're like not quite nursing homes, but they've shoved the disabled and drug addicts and the elderly together. This is where you want me to live? I'm not going to look. It's like, are you going to visit me? You don't visit me now. You don't call me. You don't send me a Christmas card. You don't drop off anything for Christmas. I've gone through holiday after holiday after holiday after holiday. Nobody has called me. Nobody has sent a card. Nobody stops by. And I mean, if you have been here, listened to me before, some of my family members, even that one that's close to me, they don't either. And I bet the rest of the family thinks that one that should be is here all the time, is making sure I'm taken care of. Another family member stopped in and basically was trying to dump everything out of my house. I was like, don't throw that away. What are you doing? Now I have no furniture and my house is a mess. I have nothing to sit on. I got chairs up from the basement. And so, what are you doing? Well, if I wasn't going to let him put me into some kind of living condition like that, which I will sit in four walls, I'll be afraid of going in my hallway, the drug dealers, and I'll have less. I won't, at least now I got my doggie, I won't have a dog. And even if I'm not well enough to go outside or don't go, he can stay outside all day. And I can open up windows and I can watch him. I mean, no matter what, I find happiness just knowing that there are trees out there, and there's life. There's a you know, I don't need anybody. If you don't have to come by, you don't have to come by. I don't need to take your time. If you don't want to leave a fruit cake, that's fine. You don't have to leave anything. Just leave me. Why don't you make sure? And he's going to take care of a family over in another country that he doesn't even know next year. So there's no way you can help me anyway. And he's wealthy. Very well educated and wealthy. But unless I do what they think I should do, because I'm poor and I'm educated, just like they do with the elderly and the poor, shove them away. I swear I don't know if I will even live 2 years in a place like that. But there's a waiting list. I'm lucky. There's a waiting list, and there isn't any room anyway. So I got to find a way. That's why I'm trying to do cooking videos. And in 14 days, I won't be able to live stream anymore because this costs $50 a month. So it costs me money to do live streams. So I'm going to be on just a little bit more and do my best, and maybe make some videos and make them short so I won't take your time. So anyway, so sometimes we're very disconnected with people who are truly in that situation and truly are about to, like when I had somebody like made a donation. It's like, oh, that nice. Thank you so much. A donation to help me keep my house and pay my taxes. And then I get a text message. Why don't you sign your house over to me? Oh, you just did this to take my home. So you think somebody is being nice and they're not. And I go like, I'm not that stupid. I'm stupid, but I'm not that stupid. So if anybody has any ideas out there how I can make a better show or a good show, or what's good about anything that I do or say, and how I can make this work so maybe I can get the algorithms to kick in, and maybe I can get monetized. If I get monetized, I can get revenue from commercials. Maybe I can. If anybody has any ideas, I'm open to ideas. I really am, because I'm in a desperate situation, and spring is going to come awfully fast, and I don't have a dime to give them, and I'm poorer than you can possibly imagine. So unless I win the lottery, I need a little help. So I need ideas. Of course, I need subs help, views help. Problem is that they need you to watch the whole video, so I'll try and make short videos. If you watch like a second, it doesn't count as a view. But so I'll make short videos. But anyway, any ideas, could you please leave them in the comment section? And anything that you like that I say this, don't say that. Talk about this more. You know about this. You don't know anything about that. Anything, even if you think it's criticism. Sometimes it's helpful criticism, because I need to survive and I need help in any way, shape, or form. If you know someone wealthy, like Mr. Bucks or the guy from the Monopoly board, if anybody knows Elon Musk, well, if she has my baby, maybe. I know nobody knows Elon Musk. That would be great. Here's my winning lottery ticket. That would be great. Yes, that would be great. But ideas would be great, because I'd like to make really good content, and I'd like to feel really good about myself and what I do for a living. Okay, God bless you, and thank you. And thank you for being here. Whoever is here, I'm not sure, because I see Black Samurai, I see Sanador, and God bless you. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. I was going to play you. I should take myself out. I was going to play this because I saw this today when I came home. I thought about this stream. I was going to start with this, in fact. Let's remove myself.
How does someone come here as a dreamer and get that kind of a line of credit? Oh, that's right. Sorry. It was because predatory lending. Right. No, wait, the government forced them to and then accused the banks of being predatory in their lending. You have to give to people who can't pay it back. Otherwise, it's racist. Right. Well, why is it racist? Because people of a different ethnic persuasion can't pay it back. Well, then why would I lend them the money? So that you're not racist. Do you see what they do? And here's the thing. I want you to remember this. This is exactly who the left panders to. It is exactly the kind of vote that the left doesn't just want, that they need. And it is exactly the kind of people who the left wants to promise free healthcare. That's why the government shut down right now. You know that, right? That's the biggest reason the government shut down. They want to extend healthcare to illegals while they fine you for not paying the exorbitant rates. They want to ensure that Coca-Cola or Fanta is still kept on Snap. These are the people who the left tells you. These are the sob stories. Don't you want to help them? But don't take my word for it, because this chick's a fan of, well, watch.
Here's the reality. When you set yourself up as being the arbiter of girl brain versus boy brain, you are going to make us as a country repeal the 19th Amendment, you being the arbiter of women. This.
I am not the arbiter of women.
Well, you're really trying to freaking it.
Please follow Jessica Crocker. She's better.
Do we know Jessica Crocker?
Isn't she one of your representatives, Texas?
It was at this moment that he knew he f***ed up.
Oh, Jasmine. Sorry. Jasmine Crocker.
You don't even know the people of the...
She is not my representative.
Not my representative.
Oh, well, sorry.
Combine immigrating from a crappy country with the entitlement of feminism, and you get the woman who goes, sorry, I had the mommy brain.